ROTL One Pride, this is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide, and happy Victory Monday. The Lions beat the Packers, everything is right in the world. Aaron Rodgers looked like he had a face like a slapped arse. I don't know about you, Ryan, but I've had a great day today.
Oh yeah, a fantastic weekend. Like I said, we're seeing one programme hopefully crumble and a dynasty end. And now we're seeing Aaron Rodgers having a paddy on the field, shouting and swearing. Couldn't have gone much better, really. And the Rams lost.
Yeah.
They're picking it like 5-11. That's perfect.
I can't deal with all this great news that we've got coming into us at once, but we will talk about the Packers later. We are on for a double dose of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast today, so welcome to the college football podcast, Bowling for Basketballs. We are reaching the culmination of the college season. We are getting there. We're doing the show a little earlier this week because I'm at work most of the week on nights and we won't be able to do it till Friday otherwise. We did not want to keep you waiting, so we're going to do it all while everything is fresh in our mind. But Ryan, like I say, we are starting to reach the culmination of the college football season. Championship games are about to be decided. You know, we have dynasties possibly falling, basketball colleges taking over the football scene, got another head coach fired, we've had the highest scoring regulation game in the history of college football. This was a crazy week as we crescendo towards the end of the season.
Yeah. Pretenders became contenders. Like I say, the contenders have shown their pretenders. A clear, separate group of teams have now shown that they're probably mean business, while the rest just look into next year, back to the drawing board. And yeah, head coaches now will start dropping like flies as teams realise that the season has literally gone to the dogs. It's time to start looking forward to 2023 for a lot of sides, unfortunately. But bowl games, we're probably going to have maybe a record number of bowl eligible teams. There's only like 26 bowl games. They only have like 55 places to hand out. But so far, it looks like there's about 30 teams that are 6-3, something stupid. A lot of teams are going to miss out this year.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, for some of them, just reaching bowl eligibility will be an achievement. But some of these conferences, you know, you've got the MAC taking wins off one another, the Mountain West taking wins off one another, the Pac-12 taking wins off one another. Like I say, there are a lot of teams who are going to reach that. So what do we have in store for you today? We're going to go through a little bit of news first, then we're going to get the FCS report from Ryan, what's going on in the second division of college football. Then we're going to break down into the Week 10 review of the college season, and we're going to shine a light on some of the head coaches who are doing tremendous jobs in trying circumstances this season. Everyone focuses on the head coaches of the top teams all the time. Well, we're going to give some love to some of the lesser guys in there as well. We're going to go through the games as we usually do, and then if we have time before the main Roar of the Lions podcast UK later, we will have a look at Week 11 as well. Just want to shout out everybody who's joining us. Thank you to everyone who's joining us on Twitch. I see you there, although no one has commented just quite yet. In YouTube, got John Ball. He says, hello, Atman UK. Hello to you, good sir. Hope you are well. Michael Hook is in there. He says, happy Victory Monday. Happy Victory Monday to everybody. I hope you have had a superb day wallowing in the tears of Green Bay Packers fans. I know I sure as hell have. Miss Harley Quinn is in. She says, congratulations. Thank you ever so much. We needed this one really, really badly. Grandizer is in the building. It says the college football stream changed today. Yeah, because of work. So we're doing it earlier this week. We'll get it in depth. Fanman is in. He says, hey, fellas. I'm so happy for you guys from Miss Harley Quinn. Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it. And Pat's won as well. And the Lions beat the Packers. Let's go. Indeed. You sent a head coach fired this week as well. Frank Reich has gone from the Colts, all because of what the Pats did to them at the weekend. So well done there. Ken Stouder says, go blue high. Oh yes, Michigan, another impressive win for them this week. We will get down to that soon. Just quickly go through all the housekeeping very quickly. Roar of the Lions UK Discord, if you want in, let us know. We'll send you a link. The main podcast where we talk about the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers is coming up right after our show here. So stick with us. It is going to be fun. We're going to have a little party, as they say. Don't forget to like and sub to everything. Twitch, YouTube. Appreciate all of you for following us, lending us your support. It means everything to us. We really do appreciate it. And of course, Lions Nation Unite, we are a member on there. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do go. Please do so. It's Herman Moore's pet project. It is a forum where content is created by Detroit Lions fans for Detroit Lions fans. No credential media, just the best of what you get from YouTube. Some great channels on there. So yeah, go check it out. Right, let's dive down into the show because we have a lot to discuss as per usual. Little bit of news this week, Ryan. We mentioned head coaches are going to start falling thick and fast now. Well, another one has gone, and this is no surprise. I actually put the link up to this guy in our Discord in our college football chat last week, wondering why the hell he'd not been sacked, but he's gone now. We are, of course, talking about Jeff Scott of the South Florida Bulls. They have dispensed with him in his third season with the team. His reign has been nothing short of a disaster, at least on the field, although he's meant to have made big strides with the team off of it. He's gone 4-26 overall, and he has an astonishing 1-19 record in the AAC with a sole win against Temple last year. His only conference success in his reign there. Ryan, this is probably the least surprising firing of any of the ones made this year so far.
1-23 in the FBS as well. In 3 years, he has beaten one FBS team in 24 attempts. That's abysmal. That has to be the worst in the FBS. I can't think of any team in the FBS that can be worse. Like I say, this is a job. You'd have to be crazy to take this job. On the field, it just ain't there. Like I say, the level of recruits, the high-end talent, it just ain't there. People don't want to go to South Florida. They were lucky they got Jerry Bohannon, the Baylor, back up to go get the job this year, but that didn't come to anything either. They got a good QB, so this team is going nowhere quickly. And with a record like that, you'll be lucky to get a head coaching job in the FBS, because that record alone speaks for itself. And the fact the athletic director was willing to keep him on, I would not have kept him on after 2 years. He got 3 years, and he mustered a handful of wins in one of the Group 5 worst conferences as well. So, God, they must be so glad to see the back of him. I'd have paid any money in the world to rip up that contract.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's just not done anything there, and this was a very justified firing. Where was I? Very quickly, I saw that is it Tom Herman has been linked there. Remember the old Longhorns head coach? I think the one before Sarkisian. I mean, that would be a bit of a fall from grace, going from the Longhorns, getting their expensive budget, their better recruits, all that, to ending down in South Florida. But that's kind of the only job he'll have available to him now after the job he did there. And I mean, do you fancy him to go there and do that one?
I mean, if you're desperate for work, you probably will take it. They've probably got some boosters, probably could pay a good salary, but you know what you're getting. There isn't a right lot to work with on the field.
No. And
he's hardly going to be the best recruiter, I imagine. Like I say, Texas weren't very good. And so he ain't going to bring in many high-profile names from the portal. So the South Florida Bulls, their future for the next years is probably going to be pretty bleak, if it isn't already anywhere.
Yeah, you got a lot of teams around there, big high-profile recruiting schools, and even you've got UCF who are ranked and doing well this year, so you've got a lot of competition. It's going to be very difficult indeed. But yeah, South Florida in the search for a new coach. Shout out on Twitch to everyone joining. Big Aries goes, Victory Monday. Yes, it is indeed. Dan Paskey's in. He goes, yeah, looking forward to the doubleheader. Go Lions. Do you know the Colts interim head coach? I thought he was a college coach. No, it was their old center, Jeff Saturday. The one of infamy. You can go on YouTube and see the video of Peyton Manning shouting the life out of him on a drive when Jeff's telling him to run the ball and Peyton wants to throw it, and then the Colts go and score a touchdown through a run and Jeff rubs it in his face. It's a very well known thing, but yeah, no, he's been on the staff there. He's in their Ring of Honor and everything. So yeah, the Colts are a mess at the moment, which is something that's really weird to say. Big Aries 70 says UMass had a rough go for a long while. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about UMass later. And you can't, actually. A lot to chat about. So that's really everything for the news. Don't really have a great deal else. I don't know if you saw, I put it in the Discord earlier, but the whole thing about the Pac-12 expansion to include San Diego State has proven to be false, for now at least. So Pac-12 is staying exactly as it is. Probably wouldn't have been a good addition for them anyhow. Right, let's move it on. I'm going to hand it over to Ryan, and he's going to let us know what happened in the world of the FCS this year. Then, number one team nearly got upset on there. There's a lot going on in the world there at the minute, isn't there, Ryan?
Yep. It's the start. This was the first biggest week because NCAA and the FCS have now tracking their playoffs on automatic bids. So there were too many games of the week, and there was 2 standout performances, but there was no rankings. So week 11, player of the week number 1. This is easy. Incarnate word QB Lindsey Scott. In the first half, they were 70-6 up against Houston Baptist. He went 15 of 20 for 319 yards and 7 passing touchdowns in the game. He had 7 of them. That was in the first half. That was a new, I believe, SCS and maybe an FBS record. 7 passing touchdowns in one half. They absolutely blew them away. In the second half, they only scored 3 more points. They must have rolled out the second and third stringers, but the damage was very much done there. That was an ugly, lopsided game for them, unfortunately. And then on the ground, Montana Grizz, running back Nick Ostmo, he had 26 carries for 221 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also had 2 receptions for 39 yards. He was the entire offense there in a massive blowout 57-0 win against Cal Poly. That was to stop a 3-game losing skid as well. So they're hanging on in there. Their playoff hopes very much in the balance. There's 2 weeks left. Now, the standout results I've picked this week in the Ivy League, Yale destroyed Brown 69-17. That is an ugly one-sided one there. Fordham, the Rams, who in the last 2 weeks have snuck into the back top of the 25, took down Bucknell 59-17 to keep playoff hopes alive there. Princeton, the only undefeated Ivy League team, got a real scare, but scraped past Dartmouth 17-14 to keep the goose egg to stay undefeated on the year. The big game of the week, Weber State, they were 7th in the nation. They took down Montana in the last 2 weeks, and they almost picked up the scalp of undefeated Sacramento State, but the Sac State came out 33-30 winners to stay undefeated. They were 3 in the nation. The rankings have not been updated this week, so on Monday. Could well be first, even second now. So they are probably the team right now in the most form. Holy Cross, the Crusaders, took down Lehigh 42-14 to stay undefeated. They also moved to 9-0 on the 5th season. Montana State, as you mentioned, this was the biggest scare. They were number 2 in the nation. They were playing Northern Arizona, lowly Northern Arizona, who had a 10-point lead, I think, in the 4th quarter. But unfortunately, they could not hang on. And the Cats escaped with a very narrow 41-38 victory. They were number 2 going into last week, so they've just hung on to that. That is the surprise package of last year's playoffs. Number 1, San Diego State in the nation last week, also fell short of how they expected to play and scraped past Northern Iowa just 31-28. So the top 3 teams in the nation last week all won by 3 points. So opposition, apart from Weber State, that they'd like to think they would have probably been able to pull away from. So this was a week where I think they can count themselves very lucky to still probably be 1, 2, 3 when the rankings come out. But I reckon that Sac State may take that number 1 spot this year. The rankings, I think, will be out on Tuesday. As I mentioned, Montana, 57-0 win over Cal Poly. That's their first win in 4 games. They're now, I believe, 6-3 after that 3-game skid. And Jackson State, the last undefeated team in the top 25, handled business against Texas Southern, and they came away 41-14 winners. The automatic bids for the playoffs have started. So as of today, the champions, so South Dakota State, have taken the Missouri Valley Conference. Holy Cross have won the Patriots division for the 4th year in a row. So those 2 have got automatic bids for the playoffs. And because Merrimack in the Northeast Conference are not eligible for the playoffs this year, St. Francis, PA, which I'm going to guess maybe Pennsylvania. I've been given the automatic bid there. So 11, 3 of the automatic bids have been decided. The rest will probably all get decided this weekend. Then their seeds will be assigned by their final records. So these 3 get a bye, I believe, in the first round of the playoffs. And on the 20th of November, the other 13 teams will be decided by the FCS committee. So only 3 of 24 teams right now have made the playoffs. And when they're all decided, I think the first 11 receive first round byes, then you've got the quarterfinals, then they say you'll meet at the semi-finals, and it'll work their way in from there. So playoff bids have begun. The road to the national championship in the FCS has now started, and it's heating up. Like I say, at least half the teams I've named there will probably confirm an automatic bid or be selected by the committee, no doubt. But the place, if anyone outside the top 25 is going to make their case, it's got to happen next week, because there are only 2 games left and there's only 13 days for the FCS committee to sit down and discuss. So right now, teams like Montana, they'll be sweating. They're only ranked like 13 and they're 6-3. They may have to play a quarterfinal. And last year, they were one of the standout teams and got a bye, I believe, in the first round. So certainly fall from grace, the Grizzlies this year. But if Matthew Saluka had another, I think, 130 yards rushing, another 150 yards passing through the air, the dual threat quarterback is one of the best in the nation. But it's going to be a tough sledding right now if the Grizzlies want to try and stake their claim to be relevant again in the national picture. But yep, that's the current playoff picture. This time next week, I probably will have more automatic bids, and the week after, we'll know the entire bracket.
There you have it. It's getting exciting, folks. We're reaching the end of the FCS and the FBS seasons. All these championship games are starting to take place. The playoffs down in the FCS, it's going to be good fun. So stick with us for that. Come back next week, and Ryan will let you know what is cracking on in terms of the playoffs and everything going on there. So appreciate that one, Ryan. Right, let's move it over to FBS football, and we are going to go into week 10 of the season we are reviewing. This is crazy. It seems like, you know, a few minutes since this season started and we're already at week 10 and we're looking ahead to week 11. There's only 2 or 3 games left for most teams now. A lot of teams' seasons are over, a lot maybe just beginning, we don't know. Like Ryan says, a lot of teams bowl eligible. If you don't know, it takes 6 wins in a season to reach bowl eligibility, and then when all is said and done, you will get assigned to a game at the end depending on your record and depending on what the committees think and everything. It's very, very intriguing. But before we talk about the players and before we talk about the teams, because we do that every week, we put a lot of focus on the players, we put a lot of focus on the teams, we don't put a lot of focus on the head coaches. Really, the only time you really hear about head coaches on here are when they get fired, and there are a lot of stories this year, a lot of good feel-good stories in the FBS in terms of head coaches who've done really good jobs in demanding situations. And I was thinking about this earlier when, you know, we're talking about head coach of the year candidates, you know, not necessarily based just on what they've done, whether they're going to get to the playoffs, whether it's a big swanky team, but in terms of what coaches have done with the results at their disposal, etc. Who has done the most, you know, good out there this season? And I sort of wrote a list on my own Twitter earlier. I think it's incredibly difficult, Rye, to pick out an absolute kind of head coach of the year candidate at this point with so little time left. The guys I mentioned on the one earlier, I was talking about the likes of Mike Elko, Hugh Freeze, Lance Leopold, Sonny Dykes, Willie Fritz. You can add Jim Mora and Chris Crichton in there as well. But I mean, out of those names, Ralph, for anyone else for you, if you're thinking initially right now about head coach of the year candidates, at least, who really comes to mind for you straight away?
For me, I actually think Central Florida. Right, so Gus Malzahn inherited a team that lost its starting quarterback, one of the best it's had for 10, 20 years in Dylan Gabriel. It then took on board the backup quarterback from Ole Miss, who was primarily a running back in John Rice Plumlee, who was a baseball pitcher, was not known for his passing arm. And what he's done is, like I say, he's made this defense incredibly stout. In an AAC conference, like I say, the American is an absolute battle. It's a doghouse, week in, week out. And currently, both sides of the ball have been playing really well all year. Like I say, they're 7-1. They're firmly in contention to make that New Year's Six game as the best group of 5 side, I think. Them and Tulane, I think those are probably 2 or 3 names that are really up there that can get that big fancy bowl game on New Year's Day. And they're doing a fantastic job. They look like a team that could very well challenge for that conference title and possibly go on to have a 10-11 win season. And when you think about how heavily they relied on Dylan Gabriel to win them games the last 2 or 3 years, when he missed injury, how often they'd struggle. And not that, like say, the fact that he left, like say, parted ways with Auburn, which is a huge program, and then found his way down to the Knights, where he probably thought to himself, like, this is a program currently in flux. Can I get them to those lofty heights? Like, I've seen what they've done, like say, this year. They've been dropping 40, 50 points on teams. We had a game where QB was responsible for like 6-7 touchdowns on his own. We've got them playing fantastic football, and he's got to say Isaiah Bowser back to running back, who's a real ground workhorse on his day as well. So the team's incredibly balanced, and they're really going under the radar. They're slipping into it, like I said, they're up into like back end of the playoff rankings, like I say, like 23, 24, 25. But if they continue to win out, could finish in the top 15. And to see his old Auburn side doing poorly, like I said, they just look a mess. Like I said, they've just departed with Brian Harsin. I bet they'd love to have Gus back. Yeah, they're really outplaying themselves, especially with a QB that, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really rate that highly when I saw him come out of the portal and go there. I didn't think he was going to light things up down in Central Florida.
No. You know what? Actually, I'm glad you brought him up, because he's someone I completely neglected to mention in this list. But I agree. I think out of the group of 5 teams, he's certainly a guy up there. He's probably going to get a shot at a higher level if he carries on doing what he's doing. But another guy I do want to mention, sort of in this vein, actually, I think someone else who's gone entirely underrated this season and no one's talking about them is Liberty and Hugh Freeze. I mean, the job he has done there this season. They are 8-1 on the season now, I believe. 7-1, 8. I think they're 8-1 on the season now. Just a 1-point loss to Wake Forest, very guttingly for them, which takes them of that record. But they waltzed into Fayetteville this weekend, and I mean, they punished Arkansas this weekend. This was not a game until the last 5 minutes when Arkansas decided to wake up. But when Malik Willis left last year, everyone thought, oh, Liberty are dead, they're done. But for me, it looks like having Malik Willis there at Liberty was more of a problem for them than a benefit, because everyone was focusing on him, the draft, he's the playmaker who does it all, the defense was bad, you know, the offense sort of ran through him. But this year, Liberty, they've got a good defense this year. Like I say, they pummeled KJ Jefferson this weekend. Arkansas have one of the best offensive lines in the country, and they wrecked it. You know, the offense looks good, the quarterback, even without Charlie Brewer there, who's not really been playing and was meant to be the starting QB, he's just found another guy. The offense looks good, but he's really got them playing well this year, hasn't he? And no one's talking about them.
Yeah, and there's a reason why people keep mentioning Hugh Freeze for the Auburn job. People think he's going to be back in the SEC. People said that, like I say, he's left the SEC last week and he's going to be better very quickly. Like I say, he's had an up and down time, like I say, Hugh Freeze. Everyone remembers the problems he's had.
Yeah.
People wrote him off, like say, like don't touch him, he's a bit of a joke. Found himself in Liberty, where he probably didn't want to be, but he might have not had many job offers at the time, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And like I say, when you have Malik Willis, it almost makes you a very one-dimensional team. They won because of Malik, or they usually lost because of him too. Like I say, he was their only go-to thing. The game revolved around him, and that made them easy to play against. I'd say a lot of time. You knew what you were getting with Liberty. You knew how to stop them. If you kept Malik in the pocket and made him throw constantly, good chance you beat them. But now they've just found so much more balance since Malik has moved on. To say he was there, kind of their everything, like Stafford was to the Lions, you knew how to play against him. And then when he left, and you just think, well, who could possibly take that role? And then, like you say, Charlie Brewer, like 1.5 games in, basically retires, basically says, I won't be staying at the product, and then just throws another QB turmoil in. It's not what you need at the start of the season. And then to just bounce back from that again, like I say, go to like the third guy, and then, like you say, the defense has stepped up incredibly well to go against the Arkansas team that is legit. Like I say, they held Hazelwood to like 70 yards, kept KJ in the pocket, kept him honest, got to him, brought him down. Like you're saying, he's a 230 guy. He's a stocky QB. It's hard to bring down, but they did a good job of like neutralizing him. So that was a proper. I'd say that's one of the statement wins that you put on your CV there. So can Liberty keep hold of few threes? Probably not. No. But will he leave them in a better position than they found him? I'd like to think he will, and that definitely deserves some respect.
Oh yeah, because I mean they join the CUSA next year, so they'll have bowl eligibility status. They'll be able to go after titles. So he'll lay the groundwork on there. But I'm with you. I'm 99.5% certain that Hugh Freeze is an SEC head coach next year. I am pretty set on that. Auburn needs someone with experience in the division, and there ain't many of those guys with a lot of experience knocking around. It just makes all the sense in the world. But yeah, that Liberty team looks so impressive, because I watch Arkansas every week, so I'm a KJ stan, and I was so impressed by them. So impressed to just waltz into SEC opposition like that as an independent and absolutely lay the smackdown on them was great. So yeah, Hugh Freeze definitely deserves a mention here. Dan asks us in the Twitch chat, and I want to be careful here because we had a lot of disagreements about this last year, but he said, what did you think of Malik's performance last night? We've mentioned Malik Willis, we've mentioned Liberty. I mean, did you take away much from last night? For me, I saw the same issues I saw with him at college. Yes, he's capable of great throws, moving out the pocket, making plays, but he's also capable of hanging onto the ball for far too long, making rash decisions that cost his team. I feel like he's the same guy he was last year.
Yeah, I think the wrong team took him.
Yeah.
I think a team like Tennessee that's basically built to win, like Malik Willis is like 2-3 years away from actually taking that next step. If he ever does, like you say, what was he, 50? He was like 9 of 15 for like 80 yards. That just can't cut it. This is a passing league. You cannot be passing for 80 yards. And I know the loss probably wasn't his fault. Like Casey's got a great defense and they can neutralize him, but he's not ready to start. But he has to, because Tannehill just right now is just not fit enough. And in the long term, maybe he'll benefit from this.
Yeah,
like these snaps where he's just not ready. But yeah, I'm incredibly glad we did not take him. And I know as much of time I wanted him, but I just feel like there's projects and there's working projects and then there's like long-term projects. Yeah. And I feel like Malik comes under the long-term project. Like you said, he might not be good to go for 3-4 years. Yeah,
that's what I saw. I saw the development guy last night. I saw the good he can do and the level where he's at, where he's just not making the right decisions as well at the minute. But you would expect no less. But against that Chiefs pass rush, I think he acquitted himself well. But yeah, like I said, he's not ready. John, I see you in the YouTube chat mentioning about the rankings. We'll chat about those as soon as we've done these head coaches, even though they're not out yet. I'm going to hypothesize what they might be this week. So yeah, mentioned Gus Malzahn and we mentioned Hugh Freeze. There's a few other coaches who I think would fall into the category of maybe Coach of the Year possibility. I mean, one we need to mention is Jim Mora at UConn. I mean, UConn these last few, since 2016, UConn have gone 3-9, 3-9, 1-11, 2-10, 1-11. They have been dead to the world. Randy Edsall kind of ruined them there. And in his first season, he's got them 5-5 right now. He's on the verge of bowl eligibility. They've got to play Liberty and Army, but they're one game away from getting bowl eligibility. To come back from a team who, this time last year, were playing the toilet bowl against UMass and got blown out and looked completely and utterly hopeless. The job he's done there in one season is quite astonishing.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Like I said, a Boston College team this weekend had a freshman QB that threw for like 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. UConn held that team to 3 points. They only needed to score 13 to beat them. And I'm not being funny, I know Boston College aren't it, but Boston College have got Zay Flowers. Obviously, they've still got Jerkovic. They've got this freshman QB. Like I say, they've got corners, they've got safeties. They're still an actual ACC franchise. Yeah. And they're no scrubs. And they've got a strong offensive line. And they got completely shut down. That, for me, is one of the wins of the whole season. Like I said, we were talking last year about UMass v UConn, the toilet bowl. And you look how far this program's come in just a year, how much confidence has been restored in it, how much this will be able to help recruitment, how much, like say, gain money. I think if they get bowl eligibility, if they okay, do they get blown out by a bit? If they go and beat Army, like the committee, you've got to give them a bowl game. I'd rather see them in a bowl game than one of someone like Duke or Wake Forest. I'd love to see them here because they deserve it. If they get bowl eligibility, Jim Mora is up there to potentially probably win head coach of the year. Just purely for the fact that that'd be an immense turnaround because their schedule as well has been difficult. UConn don't go out there and just pick crap teams. They don't go out there to just try get cupcake wins. They want to challenge themselves, and if that means going 2 and 3 wins or getting 5 or 6, they'll do it, and they do it with a lot of kids that are just not household names. I cannot name a UConn player this season.
No, I think is it Nate Carter, the running back who started off the season really well? I think it was Nate Carter, but then he got injured and I think he got cropped for the season. So yeah, like you, outside of that, I wouldn't know many names. So yeah, Jim Mora, the job he's done there is fantastic. He should be in the running for it. Another team who traditionally don't do very well, closer to home here, who place you're not meant to be able to go and win games, but on the verge of bowl eligibility, Chris Creighton at Eastern Michigan. They are currently a 5-win team. They're 5-5. They play the Akron Zips tomorrow, and Akron are garbage. They've not won a game all season, I don't believe, or they might have won one, but I'm pretty sure they're hovering around 1-9 this season. Eastern Michigan is a place where you're told you can't go and win football games, but he consistently holds about a 500 record there. I'm pretty sure it's nearly dead on 500 he has, but he's got them on the verge of bowl eligibility before any of the other Michigan sides. I mean, in terms of Western and Central, who generally have bigger budgets, better players, etc. I mean, he also has to get credit, really, surely, for keeping a franchise who are right at the bottom, who never won games, where it's impossible to win, and constantly having them up at that 500 range.
Hey, like you say, when you've got to compete with Michigan, Michigan State, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, there's probably a few more Michigans, just in state alone. When you're competing with, Michigan has not got a plethora of football talent. So when they stay in state and you've got to try and compete with them, it's an absolute minefield. And like you say, the MAC, it's absolute chaos. Anyone can beat anyone. So if you're able to keep your head above water, that's really well. And like you say, bang on that, like you say, they went to Tempe, they did a job in Arizona State, who aren't the best team, but Arizona State are never expected to lose from someone in the MAC, and they got absolutely steamrolled in the run game. So I think it's only fitting that their season would end with a bowl game. And like I said, there's going to be so many teams bowl eligible. Picking out the ones that don't have requirements, because obviously some bowl games are 4th in the ACC against 5th in the SEC. They're already predetermined, but I'm pretty sure there are some bowl games where it's just yep, anyone can pick anyone. These are the games, like I say, Max have got their bowl games. I can't remember which one it is, play Barfield, but yeah, I really want to see some sides like UConn, Eastern Michigan, get rewarded for all their hard work, and if they do get to that 6 FBS wins, get rewarded with a bowl game, because bowl season sometimes can be really dull. The same faces every year, like you say, your Pitts, your Boise States, your West Virginias, teams like that. I don't want to see that every year. I want to see some of the smaller teams get preferential treatment for once. Make some creative matchups, because usually they're really dull matchups as well.
Yeah, give them an opportunity. More players might want to play in these bowl games. If you've got different teams, they've got a chance to make history for their respective teams, etc. You can really do something good this year, especially with some of the teams who you don't usually have available to you. But yeah, Chris Creighton, Eastern Michigan. There's a few others. He's been mentioned in the chat. I mentioned him a bit earlier. Ken Stauder mentions him. Willie Fritz at Tulane is killing it this year. Well, Tulane are killing it this year, aren't they? They've only got 1 defeat on the record. They are taking, they're playing this weekend. It's going to be the first, because they are ranked, they're playing, UCF this weekend. It is going to be the first time a ranked matchup has taken place at Tulane's home stadium since 1949. That's like just after the end of World War II. That's how far back you are going. And Tulane have just overcome a lot of struggle this season, a lot of issues. 8-1 on the season, right in that American Conference. Maybe even front runners to go out and win it now. I mean, the job he's done there cannot be understated. And you look at the one loss on the record. It was 3 points to Southern Miss, and you're like, they could be unbeaten now. You shouldn't really be losing to Southern Miss. But Willie Fritz has had an amazing season there and deserves respect for it.
Yeah, he's put them in a position right now to have a historic season. That game this weekend is one of the biggest games in the nation because everything is on the line. The loser of that game is in a very perilous position in the ACC. The AAC, like I said, that is a huge game, and it's bragging rights. Like I say, if someone wants that crown, it's probably going to come from one of those two teams potentially. And the New Year's Six bowl game for the Group of 5 team, only one makes it. Is it going to be one of these two? The loser probably takes a huge step back in that race as well. So there's an awful lot on the line in this game. Like I say, head coach of the year, the rankings, a division title, the bowl game, all eyes will be on this game for sure.
And Tulane's end of season schedule, their last 2 games are SMU and Cincinnati. So they cannot afford to lose this one. Those are 2 teams who are very capable, and they could soon end this with a 3-game skid if they're not careful. But yeah, Willie Fritz, the job he's done at Tulane has been amazing, so I wanted to highlight that there. Right, the other 2 I had on here, and I want to mention their games this weekend because these 2 schools that have taken a lot of tapper recently from how bad they have been. So the first guy I want to mention is Mike Elko of the Duke Blue Devils. So this is his first season at Duke, and this weekend just gone, they got their bowl eligibility. They took down, you mentioned it briefly earlier, Boston College 38-31, and this was Duke on the road who went there and put down a win on them. This is the first time they have been bowl eligible since 2018, and they've done it with weeks to spare. So obviously the big thing for Duke, they've hit on a quarterback this year. That helps. Second year, Riley Leonard. It's his first year as a starter. He's been good, not great, but really for a team like Duke, that's what you need him to be. He's got 1,851 passing yards, a 65% passer completion rating. He's got 11 touchdowns and just 4 interceptions. He leads the team with 577 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground as well. But this Duke team, right, they've been good across the board. They've got no real big standout players on here, well, maybe one, but they've played good without playing standout players. They've got 3 rushers who have over 300 yards. All of them average 5 yards per carry. That's not including Riley Leonard, so it's technically 4. They've got 3 guys over 330 yards receiving and a further 4 receivers who've got over 100 yards each, so they've spread it out. Defensively, 29th in total sacks, 61st in total tackles for loss, 34th in the nation in run defense all told. So this defense has been amongst the better units in the country and has provided support for a very, very capable offense. This Duke side have looked good this year, and all credit to Elko for going in there year 1 and establishing this sort of standard.
Yep, I've thoroughly enjoyed watching the Blue Devils this year. I'd say Riley Leonard started the season shit hot. He's tempered off in the last few weeks, but it's not mad. Like you say, they've got the job done when it's counted. And then you've got the guys like Waters, you've got Calhoun, he's supporting casting, receiving and run game. Then they've got strong backers, some good guys that set the edge and get to the quarterback. There's going to be some guys drafted from Duke this year. Like I said, there's going to be some guys hitting the draft. It's going to be a good class for them. But as you mentioned, he's just a sophomore, Riley Leonard. He's got so much more to learn and give and progress. Just a second-year guy, so he's still got 2 or 3 years of solid play under his belt. And to take a team like Duke, like say that they lost Chase Bright, went to App State, the old Clemson guy, they had him for like a year. Didn't really work out, unfortunately. So then they've went back to the drawing board, brought in Riley, and just really kicked up this year. They've done the one thing they've not been able to do for the last years, and that is score points. This offense is super balanced. like I said, they went in and went to a proper duel. That was the game I watched Boston College. Their freshman quarterback played lights out. This was a proper slugfest. It was a great game. And, yeah, they got over the line in the end, but that is what they need to do. This team has never been able to see out games, especially when times got tough or they got hard. So, yeah, really impressed with them. Like I say, their footballing program is going to come on leaps and bounds hopefully the next year, because it's always taken a back seat to the Dukes and the NCAA men's basketball. So, yeah, it's great for the ACC as well, because it's been very lopsided in the last few years. So to have someone like Duke just come in, be a threat, like I say, to Wake Forest, NC State, they're a credible threat now to these teams, and you could take them very, very lightly in the last few years, but not anymore. That can't really happen anymore.
No, exactly. Like you say, the game, they were very balanced. They had 158 yards, a touchdown through the air, 230 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground. Boston College couldn't answer that. Boston College on the flip side, 81 yards on 19 carries in the run game, couldn't get it going. Emmett Moorhead, the freshman QB you mentioned, 330 yards in the air and 4 touchdowns, no picks. But Duke's defense just did a little bit more on the day with the throwing predictability of Boston College. They had 6 tackles for loss against the pass. They had 5 sacks on the day, just enough to get them over the line to the win. That's kind of been the thing of their season. The defense has put them in good positions. The offense has been good enough to close them out. And I mean, I think this was really good for them to win this weekend, to get the bowl eligibility, because they close out the season with Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh and Wake Forest. So they've got no fear going into those games now. They've achieved bowl eligibility status. They've nothing to lose. I can see them upsetting 1, maybe 2 of those teams to round out the year.
I could see them winning all 3. 3 teams that have got nothing to play for. Wake Forest season's collapsed. Sam Hartman's had 2 terrible weeks. He's thrown 6 or 7 interceptions last 2 games. 2 bad losses. And unfortunately, that's going to end his Wake Forest career on a sour note. But yeah, the Demon Deacons are limping to the finish line. They're 6-3. They're not going to get a great bowl game. Their ACC title hopes were crushed a few weeks ago, so they'll be low on confidence in the last week. But Virginia Tech, just a mess. Duke should roll over them. And then was it Pitt?
Pitt.
See, that'll be probably a shootout. Pitt have got some into some wild games this year, so that could be one for the neutral to watch. But yeah, realistically, they could go 3-0. I'd expect them to go 2-1 and end the season on, like, what would it be, like 8-4? That'd be a phenomenal year.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah, and that will probably guarantee him a really good bowl game as well. You get to 8 wins. The more wins you get, the better bowl you get. That'd be something. If they get 7 or 8, that'd be a terrific season for them. So yeah, well done to Mike Elko. And the last guy I wanted to mention, and if you've got any more you want to mention after, feel free to put them in. Kansas. You can't not talk about this season and not talk about Kansas. Of course, we're talking about Lance Leopold. The job he's done there as a second-year head coach is something to behold. He has got them bowl eligible for the first time since 2008. 14 years since they were last eligible to go to a bowl game. And what's more impressive is they've had to do it after their starting quarterback went down halfway through the season. And somehow they found a backup who is just as good after years of not being able to find one good quarterback. So they started the season with Jalen Daniels. He started things off nicely. 67% completion rating, 1,072 yards, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. So really good hanging on to the ball. 341 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. Then Jason Bean steps in. Big shoes to fill, given that they started the season so well. Everyone's raving about the quarterback. He has to step in as the backup. He's been just as good. 66% completion rating, so just 1 less than Daniels. 986 yards, just 100 yards less than him. 11 touchdowns, same amount. 3 interceptions, a couple more, but he's a backup. 212 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Somehow Leopold has got 2 quarterbacks and he has managed to make something out of the pair of them. They're about even. Whether it's the system, what he's doing there, I don't know. But he's landed on 2 guys. Devin Neal, the standout guy at running back, he's done work on the ground. 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. The defense has been meh. It's ranked in the hundreds actually out of 131, but it's done just enough to give the offense chances to win games, which they have. But I mean, they played Oklahoma State this week, and I know State got blown out last week, but still, at the end of the day, they're a dangerous team. And he has got them to bowl eligibility for the first time in 14 years, losing his star quarterback, replacing him with a new one. He's got to be up here for some kind of Coach of the Year award for the job he's done with the Jayhawks.
Yeah, they've been I'd say one of the laughing stocks of the SBS for like the last 10 years. Arizona, UConn, Duke, Kansas, 2-3 win perennial seasons. They were great. They were bottom feeders, and this season will go down in history. Like I say, College Game Day went to Kansas, didn't it? For their game with TCU for the first time ever. They've never had live stream there with the actual panel there, and they went and did that. And things didn't go their way, but at the time they were 5-0. They were ranked. They were riding the crest of a wave, and obviously, like I say, the injury at Jalen Daniels happened. They had 2 or 3 rough weeks. Then they had this chance, like say, against Oklahoma State to step in. They had Bean. And, yeah, things have cooled off dramatically, but that's not because of their fault. Through the first 5 weeks of the season, Lonnie Phillips, they had the sack leader in the nation. He's still one up there as one of the best sackers in the country. Like I say, they've produced some fine talent on both sides of the ball. And no matter how the season ends, like I say, they've got this bowl game now under their belt. They can just sit back and now enjoy it and probably reflect on what they've achieved this year. I think he's definitely up there because he's taken a team that wasn't even bad. It was just irrelevant. The Jayhawks were just not relevant at all. Like, you just look at the game and assume you could beat them. They were even worse than Duke, and Duke were just one of those like, oh, we've got them, like say, pencil it in as a good W, but the Jayhawks were just never a credible threat to nearly anyone FBS on their schedule. So, yeah, I think compared to Kansas and Duke, I'd say what Kansas have done is a lot more impressive, especially in a lot quicker piece of time as well. So, yeah, they're very credible guys for the potential. Let's see, I think hopefully they can follow it up as well. This should hopefully be a good sign of things to come.
Well, you hope it helps the recruiting, a good bowl game, good opportunity to show themselves on a national stage. Obviously, they had game day this year as well when they played TCU. I think that's when the injury to Daniels occurred, so it's a bit harsh on them there. But a lot of exposure this year, winning games. People suddenly want to come and play for you. So, you know, and you've got Kansas State doing well, so you might be attracting just more people to Kansas altogether. Maybe some better recruits in there for them. So it would be great to see. In terms of the game against Oklahoma State, they were never in this game, and I don't know what's happened to them, but Kansas were averaging 9 yards per offensive play, so 9 yards every single time they had an offensive play. Devin Neal mentioned him as the guy. He had a monster day. He had 334 yards from scrimmage, 224 on the ground, averaging 7 yards per carry, 110 in the air on just 6 receptions. Oklahoma State offered very little in the run game. Again, their onus was put on their true freshman, so they started a guy. They didn't go with the coach's son who usually plays there. Garrett Rangel is the true freshman there. Called up late because Spencer Sanders didn't play because he's been knocked around and has injuries. Performed admirably, 27 of 40, 304 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he unfortunately added in 3 picks on there. But you can't really blame the true freshman for coming into this environment and throwing picks when he's been called up at the very last second. I think he's like 3rd or 4th on the depth chart and is meant to be. And all of a sudden he's playing in this game, but acquitted himself well. But OK State's season has just gone to hell, but well done to Kansas. That's all we can say.
Yeah, Oklahoma State completely fallen off a cliff. Even the last few weeks with Spencer Sanders, terrible. His Heisman season after about 6 weeks absolutely derailed, and the last 2-3 weeks he was terrible. And then I actually applaud this decision to not go with his son and go with the other kid. It would have been so easy for Mike Gunn did I think it's called Connor, I can't remember his name, but to go with your son would have been very easy, and it would have probably never been overlooked if they'd won or lost. If he'd have had a bad performance, I would have been like, well, that's fine. So to go with the third guy, let's say admirable. Like I say, he put in a shift, but he played like a true freshman, which I expected him to. Kansas State must have been delighted when he saw that Spencer Sanders weren't going to play. They must have been, like I say, licking their lips, knowing that this is a game where we can get bowl eligibility. Like I say, this was their best chance to get after a team that is licking its wounds, and right now, OK State is just limping to the end of the season.
Yeah.
The season that had so much promise has unfortunately just blown up in their face, and that delightful mullet.
Yeah, and again, it's good for Kansas because they can't relax now. But now you've got the bowl eligibility. It's a big sort of cross out of the way. They've got Texas Tech, the Texas Longhorns, and the big one against Kansas State to end out the season. So again, zero pressure on them now. They can go out there, just play their natural game, and hopefully snag another win or two along the way.
Yeah, like I say, that's really hard games. Like I say, that is a really tough run to schedule. But one eye, like I say, will be on the ball game. I imagine that get to Baylor. Like I say, I'd probably say in the next week or two you might do some rotational before the Kansas State game, which will probably mean everything to them to actually be relevant in their battle. Because Kansas State last few years have absolutely destroyed them. They won't be able to do that this year. No. That game, and also Kansas State, right bang there in the title race. That game is going to mean a lot to both teams. So yeah, everything's still to play for right now.
I was about to say, Kansas aren't out of it. They're 3-3 in conference and they're 5th, but the 3 teams above them are only 4-win sides, so they're 1 win out of 2nd. That's how close the Big 10 is at the minute. The Big 12 is at the minute, sorry. So you've got TCU on a pedestal massively up there on their own, but 2nd is still to play for through just about everybody. That's how close it is. So yeah, could be a lot on the line there, but well done, Lance Leopold, on the job done there. Is there anyone else you want to mention in the possible coach of the year for reasons other than just been at the top of the standings, right at the top in the college football playoffs right now?
Yeah, got to give credit to Arizona Wildcats. They're still near the bottom, but they just hung like 40 points on USC. Right.
Yeah.
They have come on leaps and bounds. Yeah. They were absolutely terrible for years. Had like 2-3 win games. Arizona State are unbeaten against them for like 2,200 days. That tells you about how lowly they are in the state of Arizona.
Yeah.
That record is very much under threat because of Jaden DeLaurier, guys like Jacob Cowing, and like I say, they're a real credible offense, and they've scored very heavily this year.
Yeah.
Their defense has allowed a lot of points, but their offense in games has scored a hell of a lot of them, and they've had some good wins. So the Arizona Wildcats are really turning things around, and next year they could be a much better side if they can bring in some more talent, because right now there's some guys there and they've finally got the coaches.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all you need. Sometimes it's a coach. You see some of these programs, Duke, Kansas, UConn, just need the right coach to implement the right culture, get the right players in, and they can do something with. So well done to those guys. So yeah, say just some of the guys we've been mentioning for possible head coach of the year. So you've got Jim Mora at UConn, Chris Creighton at Eastern Michigan, Mike Elko at Duke, Hugh Freeze at Liberty, Lance Leopold at Kansas, Sonny Dykes at TCU. I forgot to mention him in this actually, but we're going to talk about them soon, so it don't matter. Willie Fritz at Tulane. So yeah, those are some of the guys you should check out in terms of the ones who've done good head coaching jobs this year. Right, we've talked about the head coaches. Let's quickly talk about the rankings. So obviously we're doing the show early this week, so the college football playoff rankings are not out at this moment in time. But John's asked a couple of times now, so I want to answer the question for him. Thank you for remaining patient with us, John. He goes, I think the new rankings come out tomorrow. He goes, who are your top 6 teams? So for me, I think this week it's very simple. I have Georgia at 1, I have Michigan at 2, I have Ohio State at 3, I have TCU at 4, Tennessee at 5, and Oregon at 6. So you've got Georgia far and away better than anybody else at this moment in time. Michigan will absolutely kill Ohio State in a few weeks, so they're ranked above them for that. TCU, you finally got to put in there. They're still unbeaten. They are not losing games. Another impressive win this weekend. You know, you've got to have that there. And then you've got Tennessee and Oregon. Both only lost to Georgia, but Tennessee have Alabama on their resume, so I kind of feel like that gives them a little bit of an edge over Oregon in terms of the schedule they've played. So for me, it's a very easy top 6. Would you disagree, Ryan? Is there anyone you'd swap around? Anyone else you'd put in terms of your top 6?
I've got Georgia at 1, head and shoulders above everyone else. I've still got Ohio State at 2 because they became really difficult. I know they didn't play well, but they played in really difficult conditions. But I agree that I think Michigan could absolutely blast them. I've got Michigan at 3 because they just racked up the points this weekend. They just rolled over. I've got TCU at 4 because I watched the game. And outside of the fourth quarter, I was really not impressed. TCU properly stifled them. At 5, I've got Tennessee. And at 6, I've got LSU. Alabama and Ole Miss wins on that resume do the world of good for them.
Yeah.
And right now, LSU are top of that SEC West. They're in line for a bowl game.
It's crazy, isn't
Daniels, it? Yeah, it's crazy. Like a few weeks ago, they weren't even relevant.
No.
And Jane Daniels was playing okay. He leads the nation in 10-yard runs with 35. And if LSU make the playoffs, I think Brian Kelly's definitely in it. I mean, where's LSU in it?
Yeah, he is.
He's definitely in the running right now. I'd say right now he's one of the highest candidates for Coach of the Year. If LSU were to make a national title game, I'd have to hand it to him. Yeah, and then if I go down, I've got Oregon, and then I've got Alabama, and I've got Clemson. That'd be my top 9.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're not too far off there then, just switching Ohio State and Michigan around, and that number 6 could be anybody. I agree, it could be LSU. I think for LSU, that Florida State defeat was probably the best thing that could have happened to them, because everybody switched their focus off on them. Everyone stopped caring after week 1, going, they're going to be bad again, and I think that's just sort of allowed them to recoup in the shadows a little bit, and now it's yeah, they got the big win. We'll talk about that game shortly, but yeah.
We predicted as well.
Yeah.
We predicted we'd beat Ole Miss and Alabama in our predictions just these last week and the weeks before, so we saw this coming.
Yeah.
No one else did.
No, exactly. So, yeah, I think that Florida State game is probably the best thing that happened to them this season. So, yeah, we'll be intrigued. But TCU better be in the top 4, because not losing games is still good, and they've won a huge number of top 25 ranked fixtures this year. Right, let's dive down into some of the games that we've got, and we're going to start off. We mentioned the regular season record. Well, regular season game record for points was broken this week. 140 points in regular time was scored in the game between SMU and Houston. SMU came out on top of this one 77-63, as 1,346 yards of offense was dropped by both teams. And no, it is not a record. The record is 1,706, set by Patty Mahomes and Texas Tech, I believe against Oklahoma a few years back. But it wasn't far off. Only about 350 yards off the record. I mean, the lines in this one, Brian, were crazy. Tanner Mordecai, 28 of 37, 379 yards, 9 touchdowns thrown. He had a rushing touchdown as well, so he had 10 touchdowns on the day. Clayton Tune for Houston went 36 of 53 for 527 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks, but he also got 111 yards and a touchdown on the ground as well. So both quarterbacks combined for 18 touchdowns on the day. 5 Houston wide receivers went over 50 yards. 3 of them were in triple figures, including Nathaniel Dell. He had 180 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Tune, as I say, he threw 3 picks. He threw 2 bad ones in the second quarter. Meant SMU established a lead that they could never really chase down. The third was in the end zone right at the end, when a touchdown would have actually cut it to a 1-score game with 2 minutes left, but he coughed the ball up, so his interceptions were critical in the end. Both teams had offensive EPAs of 40, so EPA is your expected points allowed. So on a drive, when you start a drive, there is an expected amount of points you're meant to get. So like if you start on the 50-yard line, you're expected to get 2.5 points from that drive. If you get a touchdown, then your EPA goes up to 4.5, because you go above that. And so every drive, and if you don't score any, your EPA comes down. Both teams' EPAs were over 40, which is massive. They vastly overscored what they were meant to get. Houston were running the ball at 13 yards per play. Both teams were passing at over 10 yards per play. Houston obviously had to get away from the run game because they were so far behind. Defense deserves no mention here whatsoever. The combined stop rate of the teams was 10%. That's combined, so that's out of a possible 200% stop rate for the teams. It was 10%. SMU safety Nick Roberts had 2 interceptions on the day, so that was critical. He's about the only defender who deserves a mention out of this one, but jeez Louise, Ryan. Clayton Tune and Tanner Mordecai, 2 guys we were excited about at one point. They have both tailed off badly this season, but they've given us one final hurrah in their college careers, and what a game this was.
Oh yeah, this was definitely a game for the neutral. If you're an SMU or a Houston fan, I can't imagine you actually enjoyed this too much, because both teams absolutely exposed one another. Embarrassing. Nearly 160 players, 1 punt. There was 1 punt in the whole game. It was only about 30 yards. Abysmal defense. They just literally, I think at some point it was just like they just stopped trying. They just sat deep coverage as far as they could, just to stop each other scoring. But yeah, I'm pretty sure 9 touchdowns is up there as one of the records for a game in the FBS. So Tanner Mordecai is going to at least leave SMU with one of those, a few records in his back pocket. But yeah, an astonishing game. The fact that it was just such time possession as well. The time possession was very equal. They literally did so much damage equally on both sides. The interceptions were the factor. They were the main deciding factor, because end of the day, it was just 3 more possessions, basically.
Yeah.
And like I say, it was basically 10, 12 points that decided the game. So to be on the losing side of a historic shootout like that is probably awful. Like I say, you get that offense gave absolutely everything, but to come away with nothing. And if you're SMU, with how they've played in the last few weeks, it's probably a relief to actually get into a shootout and win, because they've stunk lately. So this is 2 teams that seasons have not been as they planned. They probably wanted a lot more from the seasons. They've both really struggled at times. But yeah, it was a fun watch anyway. Like I said, it's basically like an NCAA basketball game. Some basketball teams only score 50, 60 in college.
Yeah, I think they said SMU got more points than their basketball team averaged last season, so that's a compliment to them. I mean, both teams 5-4 on the season, both harboured much loftier expectations than that, rather than trying to sneak into a bowl game with just a couple of fixtures to go. So yeah, but Great for the neutral, like you say. And Nathaniel Dell, that's done his draft stock even more good. He needs a strong finish to the season, because some receivers starting to emerge this year. Right, let's go down into the pick watch games. I've not tallied up how many we did and did not get right this year, because we're doing this so early in the week. But some good games on show here, and maybe another team who's kind of gone under the radar this season that no one's talking about is Coastal Carolina. The last few years, Grayson McCall, that explosive offense they've had in there has had everyone talking. But for some reason this year, they just didn't seem to get the respect that they've had in previous years. But they are now 8-1 on the season. They only have a single defeat on the resume, and I believe that was the blowout by Old Dominion, which is one of the strangest results of this season. And they must be kicking themselves as well at this point, because they could easily be unbeaten as well and high up in the rankings. But they played Appalachian State, who beat them last year. I think ruined their unbeaten record there. They beat them 35-28. Both teams. This is always usually a good fixture. I like watching it. I watched this one. It was on the Thursday. I always like watching these 2 teams play. Grayson McCall does what he usually does. 253 yards, 2 touchdowns. Didn't throw any picks, which is what he did against them last year. But this year, kept it clean. Chase Bryce, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. App State, for some reason, with 3 really good running backs, cannot run the football. But Coastal took care of business, and I mean, that Old Dominion loss must sting for them at this point, ruining an unbeaten record for the season. Yeah,
and it was the manner as well. Like I say, Old Dominion battered them. It's crazy because, like I say, in the COVID year they were undefeated. and they picked up that optional game with BYU that didn't have to play, and they lost. That wrecked an undefeated season. App State last year cost them the undefeated season. This year, an Old Dominion. Like, they've got one of the youngest head coaches in the FBS, and he's currently at like 25 wins and like 5 losses. He's currently got one of the best resumes in football right now. So they're a program that just continues to be up, especially when you think about how many players lost in draft. Kind of crazy that they're still an 8-1 team. All the talent left, and they've managed to just replace it all. And I asked someone, like, say, how do you evaluate Grayson McCall for the draft? And he said, they don't have a clue. They just don't know. Like, say, and I'm kind of with that. I'm really open to the Lions getting him, but I just don't know where you take him. Does he get drafted? Is he a day 2 guy? I just don't know. I know he's good, but I just don't know how he measures up against the day 2, day 3 guys. I think the combine and the pro day will just have to tell us everything about him. But yeah, they're going to end the season really strongly again, and title contention again. So it's looking like it's going to be another great year, and they're one of the best programs probably in the last, this decade. One of the better programs in football. They've only lost like 5? Is it 4 or 5 games? They've only lost in 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. I think they just lost the one last year, just one this year so far. It's like you say, it's crazy, isn't it, with Grayson? With every college football player, if you mention a name and you know him, you roughly know where to grade him in the draft. Roughly. Like with Grayson, like you don't have a clue, do you? Is he a round 2 guy? Is he a round 3 guy? Is he a day 3 guy? Is he an undrafted free agent? You just don't know, and it's so weird for a college, especially one who's played as well as he has consistently for years. You'd think you'd have a good sort of angle on where you would put him in the draft, but no, it's one of the biggest mysteries going. He could go anywhere between, for me, 50 and 250. And you wouldn't be surprised wherever he went, but fair play to them. They are performing well this year, and yeah, we'll see. I can't remember where the end of their season goes, but they are certainly in contention for the Sun Belt again, so you would expect to see them in the title game for that one. Who have they got left on the schedule? They have Southern Miss, Virginia, and James Madison, so that's an easily win-outable record. Yeah, James Madison falling off a cliff. You can't blame them, though. Southern Miss, meh. Virginia, falling off a cliff. Never got on the cliff. Had a really bad season, so yeah, fair play. Right, let's move on. We've got South Alabama, Georgia Southern next. Unfortunately, we got this one wrong. Georgia Southern, for most of this game, were proven us right. We both bet on them, but they came short one score. South Alabama won 38-31. South Alabama, really good season for them. Mentioned a few weeks back, they were one of my favourite teams to watch. They are 7-2 on the season. Carter Bradley, the quarterback's having a nice year. LaDamian Webb, he was the guy who did it in this, the running back. 35 carries, 247 yards and 4 touchdowns at 7 yards per carry. If you don't need to not run the football, just keep on doing it. They can't stop it. Nothing you can do about it. On Georgia Southern's side, they're 5-4. Kyle Van Treese has had a good year since moving over from, oh God, I keep forgetting. It's Buffalo he's from, isn't it? Yeah, so he had 278 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day. Did what he could, threw a costly pick though, which is a shame for him. But yeah, South Alabama, one of those low-key teams having a good season that no one's really focusing on, but 7 wins is a great year for them. Yep.
And like you say, they're a Sun Belt team, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're firmly in that race as well. Like you say, those last 3 games, they can definitely stake a title claim.
Yeah, they had the big loss to Troy a week ago. Was it a week ago? I think a week and a half ago they lost to Troy, which really stood them up. And Troy beat Louisiana again this weekend. So I feel like it's going to be Troy and Coastal, which will be one hell of a fight. Troy got one of the best defenses in the league, Coastal, with Grayson McCall. I kind of hope that's the championship game at this point. Right. Let's move it on to the big ones. There are 3 big results to talk about this week, and we're going to start with the biggest disappointments of this week, Ryan. The Tennessee Volunteers football team. Me and you both went out on a limb. We said they are for real. this is the game where they're really going to show. They've beaten Alabama in a high-scoring slugfest. They've got the offense to really go and have a go at Georgia here. That defense is going to have its hands full. Well, it turns out the defense didn't really have its hands full with this one, did it? It ended Tennessee 13, Georgia 27, but let's make no mistake about this. This was about as no contest as a no contest gets.
Yeah. Now, see, it's hard because, like I said, I still feel like Tennessee is still pretty legit, but the Georgia defense, something stirred in their loins. They woke up this week. I have fallen in love with Khalil Ringo, and we are going to be drafting in just the right spot to get him. The guy is a fucking animal. I think he's my cornerback one. He was phenomenal. Like I say, they didn't even need Nolan Smith. Like I say, I know he's injured, but like his loss did not affect them. They still got pressure. They got in the face, but Tennessee shot themselves in the foot. Like I say. The handoff that was screwed up that led to the fumble. There were multiple fumbles in the second half. It started pissing down with rain. It was basically a monsoon. Tennessee could not then control the ball. They didn't have ball security. Hooker had absolutely no time to work. Hyatt missed half the game because he was injured. He was barely on the field, and he's basically their go-to guy anyway. Brew McCoy. Once Hyatt went out when they took away Brew McCoy, that was it. There was no outlet for Hendon Hooker whatsoever. He's got no tight end really speak of. Jabari Small.
Injured.
Yeah. All the weapons left. Hooker was out there on his own, a very desolate figure. I'm not writing off the balls. I'm not writing off Hooker, but yeah, Georgia turned up. Stetson Bennett just proved again, like you say, why he's so underrated.
Yeah.
He's a fucking badass, the dude. Like I say, he's up there. Should be in Heisman contention. Like I say, the offense just ticks over nicely. Offensive line kept him clean as dry as a whistle.
Yeah.
Georgia are back. This was their statement game. It's like they've been just lying in slumber and decided to finally wake up now.
They just do something when they're at Sanford, don't they? I mean, the amount of penalties that Tennessee had. You kind of figured Tennessee run a very up-tempo, high-octane offense, so you kind of figured that the noise wouldn't be so much of an issue for them because they move quickly anyhow, so they know what they're going to do. They don't need to relay and communicate and all this, etc. But, by gosh, it affected them in this game right from the start. False start penalties, moving them behind the chains. It's the one thing you can't afford to do against the Georgia defense is get behind the chains because they will eat you alive.
Yeah. Was it Tennessee? Were they called for an illegal formation?
Yeah.
Twice?
Yeah.
Twice on the same drive?
Yeah.
Head coach was going absolutely balmy. Like you say, it's those kind of errors that if you play someone like Arkansas, South Carolina, you might get away with. You put those against Georgia when you're at 1st and 15, 1st and 20, and then they blitz you.
Yeah.
You're over before you've even started. You're behind the chains. Then look at how many bodies they didn't have. They were doomed from the start. And the second half, when the weather changed, it was just miserable.
Yeah, I mean, just to put into perspective what Georgia did for them, this was the highest scoring offense in college football before this weekend Tennessee were. They averaged 3.85 yards per play in this game. That is 5th percentile. Explosive play rate, 3%, 4th percentile. And you think of all those Hooker to Hyatt passes, the explosive plays, the big plays, just 4th percentile on explosive play rate. 20% on third down success rate. That's 5th percentile. This is eating them alive in the run game. They ran it at 3.4 yards per carry, Tennessee. The Jabari Small got injured. That was it. They were done for. Georgia's defense, 7 tackles for loss, 6 of them in the pass game, 6 sacks, 3 turnovers, 3 fumble recoveries, 3 fumbles forced. I mean, they lost all that talent last year. And, this offense, while not as historically good as last year, I mean, they're a level below, but that's still probably one of the best defenses of all time. It's just not quite as what it was last year, but they've just reloaded and gone again. Like you say, even with injuries.
The problem is Tennessee played into their hands. Now, I saw, how many screens and tunnel screens not blocked. Malachi Starks, the safety, just crashing down for that tackle for loss, just destroying a running back, a wide receiver for a tackle for loss. They ran a screen or a tunnel screen about 10 times, and they were blown up for 7 of them because the receivers were not blocking, and Georgia play like 6 defensive backs. Georgia have like 3 corners. They'll play like 2 or 3 safeties, and they are probably the best secondary of football. They crash down and they tackle. Bullard, phenomenal game. He was absolutely everywhere making things happen. Corners, like say Starks, the safety, they're the best tackling DBs in the nation, and they crash down. And if you're going to throw passes behind line scrimmage, you're just feeding into a defense's hands like that. You're not stretching the field. Like I say, if you're going to ask them to make, especially in the weather conditions, throwing fast balls out and you expect them to get to hang on to the ball, just asking for trouble. They play into the hands, and in the end, Georgia on offense did not have to do a lot.
Oh no, absolutely not. And Georgia just look far and away better than anybody else at this moment in time. They've got the playmakers, they've got the guys they need to do. Like I say, Stetson Bennett, 17 of 25, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, nobody talks about him. Everyone talks about CJ Stroud at Ohio State. They talk about Bryce Young at Alabama. All these big teams, everyone talks about their quarterbacks. Yet Stetson's well on course for a second natty in a row, and no one talks about him. I mean, his draft prospect. What the hell is his draft prospect, Kenny? If he gets a second natty in a row, surely he's got to be in contention for a draft pick. And a higher one at that.
I think he's worthy of a draft pick. Like I say, he's a weird enigma, like I say, because he's 25, he's tiny, he's skinny, but he plays like Will Levis, he plays like he's got his size, he plays like he's got the youth of Stroud or Young. Like I say, he's a former walk-on scholarship to now, like I say, one of the best QBs in the nation. He gets no respect. No. Like I say, the Natty, he's had Heisman chatter, but he's never really been in discussion. He's been phenomenal for a team that has been in flux. Like I say, when you look at Georgia QBs of the past, like you say, how they've been super young. Like I say, they've had some dominant guys like Stafford and like Aaron Murray, and then they've got this guy that this little skinny old dude just walks on and then takes the nation by storm. It's kind of like the fairy tale ending that Stetson Bennett deserves to be drafted. Like I say, he's a project. Like I say, we all know he's going to be a long-term project. But if he don't go drafted, if I'm the Lions, I'd bring him up. I've seen what he can do on a national stage. I've seen what he can do with these receivers. He plays with elite, high-level talent week in, week out, and he plays on the biggest stages of all time. If he's not more ready for being a pro than anyone else, then I don't know what is.
No, exactly. You've got to add him into a conversation there, surely. Big Aries 70 in the chat goes, he's Chris Feinke. He's a very old Florida State quarterback from the 90s, I believe. I think I've heard the name. And he goes, I think he started playing quite late as well, didn't he? So Big Aries might very well have a point there. That could be a good comparison to have for him there. We've had a first time chat in Twitch from Tension. What football do you mean? We're talking about American football here. We've given up the term for our own game over here, so no need to worry about that. Grayson McCall's in the chat. Not him personally, but Joseph Austin goes, Grayson McCall late in the draft for the Lions. Matt DeYoung goes, being a Grayson McCall fan for a year now. Heck yes. Yeah, he's going to be a very polarizing prospect when it comes to quarterbacks in the draft. But I know he's got a lot of fans, especially in the Lions fan base. Right, so Ryan, you know how when we were younger and used to watch Scooby-Doo, used to have the monsters in there and used to reveal the person below the hood, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe it's you. Well, we sort of had a revealing of that this coming weekend just gone. The team that we thought was good after been really bad, but turns out they're just the same old team once more. Of course, I'm talking about Clemson. The Clemson team of last year that we thought had disappeared and looked so much better this year has actually just been fraudulently masquerading as a ghost of some kind, and Notre Dame exposed the hell out of them this week. It was Clemson 14, Notre Dame 35 And this is a team who've lost to Marshall and Stanford at South Bend, and they got that absolute floor wiped with them. I mean, and this was on the. And what was most shocking about this was done on the ground. So Drew Pine, the Notre Dame QB, 9 of 17, 85 yards and a touchdown. That was it. On the ground, Logan Diggs, 17 carries, 114 yards at 6.7 yards per carry. Aldrich Estime, 18 carries, 104 yards, 5.8 per carry, a touchdown. Drew Pine had a rushing touchdown on the day. Michael Mayer continuing his wonderful season at tight end. He had another touchdown on the day. But this Clemson team does not get bullied in the run game very often. And me and you both said last week, if Notre Dame were going to have a chance in this, they'd have to rely on Drew Pine to throw it because they ain't going to run through them. But boy, oh boy, on the offensive side of the ball, they killed them with the run game. And then on the defensive side, they obliterated another good trench unit for Clemson here. They thoroughly beat them up on both sides of the ball.
Yep. And it was crazy, like I say, because one team had everything to lose, and one team had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And Clemson just could not muster themselves up for this one. Like I said, a defensive line got ran over that has, Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee, and then got Trenton Simpson line behind it.
Yeah.
And then got great safeties. Yeah. So, and like I said, they bulldozed them. Like I say, and this was what Marcus Freeman was all about. Strong defense and a run game. That's what he wanted from this team. And this week, they found both. They delivered both. Like I say, they kept Will Shipley in check. DJU, non-factor. He seems to have gone back to his old ways the last few weeks. Very unreliable. I saw Cade Klubnik had one target, had one throw an interception. That is not what you want when your starting quarterback is struggling. Throw the backup in, turns the ball over straight away. Like I say, so on offensive side of the ball from Clemson, bad. Notre Dame controlled the clock. They had lots of time in possession because they were running the ball well. Put defense, like I say, they were keeping the clock ticking, scoring when they had to, scoring pretty heavily. Like I said, 35 points on this Clemson defense. It's fantastic, especially how well it's been playing this year. Clemson just looked to shadow themselves, unfortunately. This was a one game where another game we predicted this upset. We knew Clemson had everything to lose, and we thought it'd be too much pressure. Going to South Bend is not easy, but this Notre Dame team in the last few weeks, Marcus Freeman is starting to turn the corner. People were writing them off when they were 0-3.
Yeah.
Then they go back to 3-3, and now they take a huge scalp on Clemson. They just ended Clemson's playoff hopes, and it came down. They came crashing down very heavily. I am so impressed with the Fighting Irish right now.
Oh yeah, Clemson require a whole host of results to go for them now, which is just not going to happen if they want to get back in the playoffs. But I'm the same with you. I was incredibly impressed with Notre Dame. And this run game's come out of nowhere, really. It's not really been a factor for them this season. Yet these last few weeks, they just seem to have got it going. We always know the offensive line's going to be good there, and they've got good players. But you've not seen it as much in recent history. But all of a sudden, it seems to have found its groove again. And like you say, just with a new head coach, he's not head coach before. Sometimes you just have to ride and die with the mistakes a little bit. I think it's kind of a little bit what the Lions are doing with Dan Campbell at the minute. When you commit to someone who's not coached before, you are committing to them through good or for bad. You're committing to them whilst they're working out the mistakes in the system. They might make grievous, egregious errors, and you have to stick with it and hope that they figure it out. And it appears that Freeman's starting to figure it out for them here. So you've seen the Notre Dame team you know and love, the one that runs the ball hard, the great offensive line. I mean, Isaiah Foskey, he's a big favourite of yours, I know he is. He had another sack on the day, and this one led by example on that defensive line. It's, a performance against a team who, at the end of the day, they're no slouches. It's difficult to get production on the defensive line against Clemson, but another great game for him. His draft prospects just going up and up and up.
Yep, like I said, the biggest game of the season, like I said, because Clemson were, I think they were good favourites. Like this Clemson team's probably the best team they've played this year. If they'd not opened the season, Notre Dame, with Tyler Buchner and Drew Pine, two very inexperienced guys, if they had a veteran established QB that was half decent,
Yeah.
They'd have 6 or 7 wins, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
They're only in the position they are where they are now is because the QB situation started the season was bad.
Yeah.
Right, and that is not their fault. And I always said, Marcus Freeman, like teams like when they were 0-3, Notre Dame fans were losing their shit. Like, you've got to give Marcus Freeman at least a year because you know they're going to recruit and get good players. So this was a big win. Like you say, Clemson O-line is fantastic. They're one of the best O-lines in the nation usually. So Foskey getting it done. Foskey and Tyree Wilson at Texas Tech, they are the 2 first-round undervalued edge products. Those 2 are storing, I think, up that first-round boards right now. Yeah. This edge class is very underrated. So it's going to be a great. I don't know where Clemson go from here now. Like I say, they need a lot of help. They cannot lose again this season because, like I say, the ACC is a mess. It's pretty chaotic. Even though they're controlling one side and UNC are controlling the other, they cannot afford to slip up again. Do not take this. Can't afford any liberties. And Notre Dame, just end the season well, and 2023, they could be an entirely different package.
Yeah, Clemson, Louisville next, then the Hurricanes, and then they've got the Gamecocks to end the season. So Louisville's probably the hardest test they've got left on that schedule. I just don't know what Louisville are this year, but on a good day, they're really damn good. So got to be careful against them. But yeah, fair play to Notre Dame. They did what they needed to do. A 17% havoc rate on the day. They had 9 tackles for loss, 7 in the passing game. That was critical. They just, when you make DJU uncomfortable, his game goes to shreds. They sacked him 4 times as well, so they really did a number on him. And the turnover margin won it for them, really, at the end. Turnover luck accounted for 6 points, so it's a 12-point differential there. That has Clemson winning by a point if those turnovers don't happen. So it just shows you 1 or 2 turnovers in games, massively critical. And
another guy.
Yeah.
I just couldn't draft right now.
No.
I just don't. He's another guy. I just can't work him out.
No.
Started the season well, but then he has mini meltdowns. I think right now he probably goes undrafted.
Has he got another? I think he's got 1 more year of eligibility. Mind you saying that.
But I don't think he should take it.
He sat behind Trevor for a long time. I think he sat behind Trevor for 2 years. He's had 2 years himself, so he's getting on. He might have to chance it. His best hope now is that they win the ACC and get a bit of recognition going, but he's got to do much better. Much, much better this week. Right, we've had 2 of the 3 big ones. Now, the biggest upset of them all. Is the dynasty over, Ryan? We called this one. LSU upset Alabama right at the end of the game with this one. LSU, and you know what? This goes to overtime, right? Alabama, very methodical, put a touchdown down straight away, do really well. LSU, you're wondering what's going to happen. Are they going to come out? What they're going to do? Jaden Daniels runs it in 1 play. Brian Kelly, with balls the size of Alabama, then decides, you know what? I ain't going to go for the tie for this. I'm going to go for all or nothing. SEC title hopes potentially on the line. Put your chips down on the table when it really matters. He goes for 2 points. They get 2 points. And they pull off a huge win for their SEC title prospects. I mean, this, first of all, was a really great game. Not putting any of this on Bryce Young. I'm not going to tolerate any slander from him today. He was really damn good. And some of the plays he makes just have you drooling at the prospect of drafting him. But whatever he did, Jaden Daniels did what he needed to do as well. Bryce Young was 328 yards, a touchdown, did throw 1 pick, but at the end of the day, that LSU secondary does contain a lot of good players in there as well. Jahmyr Gibbs continuing to have a really good season, another 170 yards from scrimmage altogether. But I mean, this was a great game for a neutral to watch. It was in a hostile Bayou environment. The crowd really got into it. You thought Bama were maybe going to sneak away with it, but LSU just kept tagging them back. And that call at the end is one of the calls of the season. That was brave. He could have ruined their SEC hopes then with that one by going for broke. But, you've got to bet to win, and he bet and he won.
Yeah, we know Brian Kelly. He was never going to play for the tie. He's brash. He's arrogant. People don't like him. That's because he plays to win. in that position, I respect any head coach that goes for 2. If you don't get it and you lose, you choose not to tie. I respect that. In overtime, you don't just play to keep carrying on. You have to end it as soon as possible. So I regret that. I expect that. And this was, like, say, a fantastic game. Like, this LSU team, like Harold Perkins, man. The kid's a freshman. He is phenomenal.
Yeah.
LSU have got a future first rounder on their hands right there. I was super impressed with him. He had a lights out game. Elias Ricks, the DB, the former Bama product, entered the portal, found his way to LSU. Great game.
All the way around. He went to Bama.
Oh, he went from
LSU to Bama.
Yeah, like you said, he might have been thinking about that because he's a funny one, like you say. He's always had all the talent, but his dad does. You question his attitude, but I agree. For me, Bama has to be done. Bama can't make the playoffs. I know people are like, oh, well, the committee want them. No. They're not going to win the SEC, I don't think. They're not the best team in the SEC. They're not the second best team in the SEC right now. And, like I say, the guys that are about to leave, like I say, Battle,
Will Anderson.
Henry Teotio, who I really like. Half the offensive line, Bryce Young, Jahmyr Gibbs. The backup, is it McClellan?
Yeah.
The backup back, he's really good as well. This team, I know it recycles, but they're about to lose a big old group of players. And Nick Saban, he ain't getting any younger. But how long realistically is he going to be around? The time of Alabama dominance feels like it's over for now. For sure, anyway.
I mean, yeah, exactly. They didn't lose too much last year, but you can see the loss of Jameson Williams and John Mechie. I know they do well, but the receiving core just don't look right this year, does it? Not without them two. That's all the speed they have gone. And when you're against LSU and these good, talented, secondaries, you need someone who can sort of break the field like those two did. And you could see they really needed someone there. But this again. Good day for draft prospects, and Will Anderson got another sack. I know he was a little quiet, but still getting the production that he needs to on there. You mentioned about underrated edges and first-round prospects and that, but one guy we mentioned, he led LSU in tackles on the day, got a sack himself as well, a few tackles for loss. B.J. Ojulari. A wonderful, and again, you don't get much purchase against this Alabama offensive line. It's hard to get production against them, but once again, he's another who has done his draft stock no end of good from this one.
Yeah, this game, you only get so many games a year where everybody's watching you, where the whole world stops to watch. And this was one of those games where the world stopped to watch. Because, like I say, everyone talks about, Bama. They're going to, have the first overall pick. You cannot rule out the amount of talent. Keyshawn Boutte, like I say, the kid's not done much at the start of the season, but the kid can still be a star. Like I said, Jane Daniels has resurrected his draft stock because at Arizona State, it was okay, but the program was currently in free fall. We were just going to drag him down with us. He bet on himself. The kid decided to go from the Pac-12 to the SEC, and he bet on himself, said, I can do it at a big level, when a lot of people told him he couldn't. And you know what? He's doing it. The kid is doing it. And he's going to the draft. He's going to be drafted. This is the best year he's ever had, and he's going to have the best film that he's ever going to have. And as a running quarterback, there's not many people in the nation better than him. Incredible dual threat athlete that has really turned heads this year. This LSU team, is it going to win the national championship? No. They're going to should they hold on and win the SEC half and make the title game? Yes. Should they be in playoff contention? Absolutely. If they win the SEC, there's no way. You can't look at their resume and say they can't be in the playoffs. Ole Miss went there, upset them, beat Alabama at home. If they win the SEC title, they're a shoo-in for the playoffs. It would have to take a monumental screw up for them to not make it if they win the SEC. But right now, like I said, Ole Miss were on a bye week, so they're a game behind. But that is a very interesting two-horse race because LSU hold the head-to-head. Ole Miss need LSU have to lose for Ole Miss to make the title game now. So
it's an intriguing three-way, isn't it? It's an intriguing three-way.
Completely.
Exactly. It's real. SEC's it's the most interesting it's been in years. It really is. There's so many teams who can still sneak their way in there, and so many favourites which might not get there at all. This is just making such intriguing viewing coming towards the end of the season. But well played LSU, well played Brian Kelly. I stood up and applauded after that one. It was a great game, and it was stupid o'clock in the morning when it finished, but it was absolutely worth staying up to watch. Right, let's go through the rest of the pick watch ones now and some of the other interesting ones we had this weekend. I mean, we can say what we want about them, right, by hook or by crook, even how bad they play, they win games, they still are unbeaten despite us going against them every week. TCU, the train rolls on, 34-24 victors over Texas Tech. I mean, TCU, it's a case of Max Duggan looked absolutely atrocious to start off this game, but he managed to get back into his groove. Finished only 12 of 23, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kendre Miller's just a star in the making. 21 carries, 158 yards, 7.5 yards per carry and a touchdown. Star wide receiver Quentin Johnston didn't really play in this. No. He wasn't fit, but at this point, it's hard to criticise them because they just keep finding ways to win games. They play bad, they win games. They start off slow, go into a big slump. They find a way to come back and win games. I don't know what Sonny Dykes is doing, but whatever it is, it's working. They find by hook or by crook a way to win games, and at the end of the day, you have to admire that.
Fortunately, Texas Tech ran out of steam. Their offense just could not keep up. I think most of their points, it was the start of the end of the third, start of the fourth, because I watched this game. And like you said, Kendre Miller, he just finally broke the door down. DeMarcado as well, his backup, had a few good plays. Like you say, and they did this about Quentin Johnston. He was on the sideline on the bike constantly with his ankle. I don't know if they wouldn't let him in or he wouldn't go in, but no, he didn't do anything. He didn't, like you say, he just did not play nearly the entirety of the game. And that, I don't want to say TCU were a one-dimensional game, but when Quentin Johnston's not in the game, you can kind of notice because there aren't many other targets to go to. The biggest outstanding game, like I said, I've already mentioned him, Tyree Wilson, number 19, the defensive end for Texas Tech. The kid is 6'6", he's like 270 pounds. He is one of the most physically dominating players in the nation, and he absolutely destroyed that offensive line. He was phenomenal. And Pierre as well, a linebacker. This Texas Tech defense came to play, and you know what? It's littered with talent. If there's any draft experts out there, or scouts, man, just watch Texas Tech. Some of these guys need drafting. There's some serious talent on this team. Sir Roderick Thompson, he's a running back that I'm kind of interested in for Detroit. He's not flashy, but he's strong, like 6 foot, carries the rock well. Texas Tech are now 4-5, but they probably shouldn't be. They just don't have a quarterback. That's not their fault. They just don't have a quarterback. Like they said, a splitting time with Donovan Wilson and some other guy. But yeah, for all their huffing and puffing, in the end, TCU blew the horse down. And like you say, TCU don't care. TCU don't give a shit. TCU know that if they go 12-0, even if they're going to use like their opponents against them, good chance they're going to make the playoff. That's the only thing they've got. TCU probably don't even care about the playoffs. No. They just want to be in the Big 12.
Yeah. They seem to have that mentality, don't they? I think they know that they're not the best team and that they know that they're going to be in some sticky situations, but they've just got the mentality that, like you say, we'll just keep knocking on the door and eventually we'll break it down. And Kendre Miller did. And Miller, he's got to be a real dark horse for this draft if he decides to go. I think he's eligible, but week on week, he is a vital, important cog in this TCU machine, and he's got to get recognition for that. The way that he plays, he doesn't take a play off, and as a running back, that's one of the most alluring qualities you can have.
Yeah, he's really good. I think he's a sophomore, so I don't think he's eligible till next year. I can't remember. I think he might be a second year back, but I agree. They lost Zach Evans, who unfortunately departed because they fell out, were on bad terms. Kendre Miller stepped right in. Like I say, they picked up this kid, and he's carried the team when Max Duggan couldn't. Because, like I say, Max Duggan has not been lights out every week. He has had some slow weeks, but the run game has really picked up the slack.
Yeah.
And this defense, it gets bailed out every week. Treeless Hodges Tomlinson, good game, got an interception as well. The fact he's able to like take away like best receivers and the kid's like 5'9" in a book like 160 still fascinates me. Like realistically, you can't really have much draft stock at that size. You're really just you're throwing a penny in the wind trying to like see if you can make something out of it at the next level. But yeah, the defense just continually struggles, but the offense just continues to bail it out eventually.
And I think, and for TCU, obviously, their proving ground comes this weekend. It's Texas this weekend, and I hope they might be a 3-loss team this year, and they might not be the greatest, but they have the offensive weapons to kill you and kill you quickly. And this TCU defense has not proven it's up to it. So this is the one for TCU this weekend, isn't it? If they want to, even at 9-0, still want to gain that recognition as legit contenders, this is the one they've got to win.
Their defense is going to get destroyed. Quinn Ewers this weekend played fantastic. Bijan Robinson was good. Can TCU offense keep up with Texas? Do you know what? I don't know. If Texas Tech can slow them down for 3 quarters and they can only pull away in 1 quarter, if Texas get running wild and TCU get behind the chains, they could blow TCU out. Texas, like you say, are just volatile.
They can't play this weekend like they did last, can they? Otherwise, that's game over.
They cannot play 3 bad quarters of just punting, turning over downs, and just having no offense. No. Quentin Johnston has got to play.
Yeah.
Even if he's hurt, he has to play. He has got to be the focal factor and keep that defense honest. Because I know what Texas is going to do. They will just stack the box if Quentin Johnston is not out there, and they'll take Kendre Miller away.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, if he does, this is going to be the wide receiver battle to watch this weekend, because you've got Xavier Worthy on one side, you've got Quentin Johnston on the other, you've got 2 of the best wide receivers in the nation, with 2 quarterbacks who are banging form. It's going to be a terrific viewing experience, so that'll be the one that I've got my own biggest this weekend, because I love Quentin Johnston as well. Just quickly diving into the chat, Debt Fanman goes, I mean, every 3-way is intriguing. Going back to the SEC chat. Yes, it is. Grandizer goes, agree, like Grayson McCall, with all the picks the Lions may have, and if they trade down a few times, get more draft capital, maybe take a QB high, 1 low, start developing the lower QB. It certainly is a way to go. You get Grayson as a second quarterback in this draft, that would be a terrific call. Keep him, develop him, stash him for when you need him. Right, let's move on. Who's the other ones we've got on the schedule here? Tulane, we'll mention this briefly. We were talking about Willie Fritz earlier. We kind of both thought that maybe Tulsa would be a banana skin for them this weekend potentially, but was not the case. Tulane came in and really convincingly beat them in this one, 27-13. Tajai Spears, I know you've mentioned him a few times, the running back, 157 yards and a touchdown on the day, was rushing at 11.2 yards per carry. Ashad Clayton Johnston ran at 14 carries, 106 yards. That was 7.6 yards per carry. Quarterback only threw for 125 yards, but Tulane can beat you through the air, they can beat you on the ground, and with Tulsa they identified the weakness on the ground and just drove them into next week, really.
It was an interesting one because it was actually 17-13 at the half, and Tulsa were very much in it. But then the second half, they got blanked. Like you say, they put themselves in a position to be competitive, and then they came out the half, and offense totally dried up. But like you say, Tulane started slow, probably wouldn't have been happy at the half, but the sign of a good team is when you're able to make half adjustments, and they certainly made adjustments, and in the second half, they got a well-deserved shutout.
Well, I mean, that was kind of the concern we had. Obviously, the week before against Memphis, they went up to a 35-0 lead at the half, then only ended up winning by like 1 score, 38-28, whatever. Gave up a load of second half points and really lost focus. And you wonder whether that carry on to this week. But as you said, this week at the half, it's a lot closer, obviously, but they made the adjustments. They ran the ball well. They kept the game, managed it well. Great win for them. And as you say, big matchup for them against UCF this week in terms of their season, but it's going to be one to watch for sure. Who do we have next? The Commander-in-Chief's Trophy. This one was a slog, but the games are always that way. Of course, it was Army versus Air Force. We both bet on Air Force to win, I believe, despite them being... Did we bet on Air Force or did you bet on Army? I think we bet on Air Force, didn't we?
I can't honestly remember.
Oh, well, anyhow, I think we both went for Air Force in this one, but this was a slog. Both teams scored a touchdown, Army in the second quarter, Air Force in the third, and then Air Force got field goals in the first and fourth ones. This was tough. Army were averaging about 3 yards per offensive play, Air Force not much more than that until later on in the game, but the players showed here. Air Force are headlined by two really good offensive players. The quarterback, Zeke Daniels, the running back, Brad Roberts. Zeke Daniels threw for 98 yards, did actually throw a pick in this one, so not his greatest game, but Brad Roberts, 135 yards on the ground, 4 yards per carry. Zeke Daniels had 89 yards and a touchdown on the ground, 6.4 yards per carry. Now, you know, this was a really good game for Brad Roberts. I know 4 yards per carry doesn't sound much, but when you're running it against Army, that's a very respectable number because it's bloody hard to run against them. And I think we were chatting about this the other day, there are quite a few service players who could get the call for the draft this year, and he's one of them.
Yep. I'd say serviceable. He's been fantastic. He's played this year and last year, 4 years. Last year went for like 1,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, but that was on 300 carries or something stupid. This year, he got his 13 and 14 touchdowns on like 180 touches, almost half, and he's managed to get the same output in the red zone. And like I say, he's still going at like 600-700 yards, like 3 games to play. Air Force this year, huge disappointments. Should have been in the Mountain West race. They still are, but I don't think they're going to make it because the Mountain West is so difficult. What should have been a potential Mountain West Championship has kind of fizzled out, but I agree. There's some really talented players on the service academies this year. Like I said, there's going to be a few that will hope to they will be asked to be drafted and forego, like I say, duty. So, like I said, Brad Roberts is like 5'11", 210, so he's not the smallest. Like I say, he could probably find a role at the next level. Malcolm Perry got drafted. Keenan Reynolds was drafted. So they're like Navy and Army. So yeah, like I said, there's a few that get drafted every few years, but this year you've definitely got Andre Carter. So he's definitely one locked in. Brad, Zeke, other guys, you might get more than one drafted.
I mean, you know, it probably depends on the team. We said Malik Willis was the wrong fit for the Titans because of how they play, but Brad Roberts will be a perfect fit for the Titans. You've got the mashing style of Derrick Henry start off, and you send in the guy who's played the triple option all his life, who runs the ball well, who runs just as hard as he does. That would kind of be the ideal scenario for him to land in, I guess, at the next level, a run-first team.
Yeah, he runs between the tackles.
Yeah.
He's a physical tackle. He's not explosive and he's not got great vision. You don't want to bump him outside. Give him a hole, make the hole, tell him to run through it, and he won't run around the defender. He'll try to run through them. And like I say, he'll pick up... He's got a lot of mileage on the clock. He's taken a lot of hits because of the 5 puts, but he's not... He's only got like a few fumbles. To say he's had like... I think he's at like nearly 500 carries in 2 years, which a lot of teams probably get off-put by. He's had a lot of wear and tear, but he's been very productive. He's nearly 30 touchdowns in 2 years.
No, I think the off-season circuit will be valuable for him when teams get a real look at him at pro days, maybe the combine, etc. Might do his stock some good if they can see the medical reports and they show that he's not as banged up as they figure he might be. As for Andre Carter, disappointing year for him. He's not built on last year. He'll still get drafted, but the talk at the start of the season was first round, but that's just not happening now, is it?
No. He has fallen well in the defensive line class, and the rest of them have emerged. So right now, he'll probably be a day 2, day 3 guy.
He could make a potential great steal for somebody, though, if they do it right. So, you know, that's the only thing there. If the further he drops, the bigger the steal he potentially becomes right, rounding this one out, another one we unfortunately lost, but this was actually low-key surprisingly a very good game. BYU and Boise State, we both bet on the resurgence of Boise State, but unfortunately BYU decided to come to the party after not playing well these last few weeks. It was 31-28 for BYU. I mean, this throws the Mountain West right back open because Boise had just started to take control of that. I know it's an out-of-conference loss and it doesn't really approach the record, but a loss is a loss. Boise State 6-3 on the year now. Cougars are 5-5. It has not been great, but I mean, BYU came to life for this one. Jaron Hall threw some picks, did get 3 touchdown passes, nearly 400 yards in the air. For once, he showed up when his run game didn't. Puka Nakua, the BYU wide receiver, who's had a low-key really good year, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day. On Boise's side, I know you love George Halani, another 2 touchdowns for him in this one. He ran hard against a very stubborn BYU defense here. I mean, it was a good game on the whole. Picks on both sides. JL Skinner looks amazing. He got a pick on the day, and I really want to draft JL Skinner, but overall a really good game to watch this, and credit to BYU for gutting this one out.
2 very love-hate sides, very unpredictable, inconsistent. When I saw the score, I was like, that don't surprise me. I'm pretty sure we said we'd pick Boise State, but we'd expect BYU with. We said this is the game, Boise State will lose. BYU been all over the place. Jaron Hall's been terrible for the last few weeks.
Yeah,
he has been real bad, but like I say, he still threw, like I say, those picks, but he managed to just get over the line. Ugly game, but yeah, to get back to 5-5, I think it's probably just a relief for BYU because it's been a really bad year for the Cougars.
Yeah, they need a running back. They need a running back, something chronic. I can't blame Hall too much for what he's done because he ain't had the run game to help him, and unfortunately he's not a good enough quarterback to win games on his own. Every big game they've played this year, they've lost, unfortunately. But, again, some really intriguing prospects on here. Skinner's safety 1 at this point, surely. He just looks a monster coming out the Mountain West. He's going to be like who was the San Diego State? He's like our Cameron Thomas this year. I'm just absolutely enamored with him. I was with Cam Thomas last year coming out the Mountain West. JL Skinner's the guy this year.
Yeah. This safety class, it really does not do a lot for me. But that's good for JL Skinner. I just don't think I don't really know many high-profile safeties coming out because I don't trust Brandon Joseph as far as I can throw the guy. So I'd say Skinner's got a good chance of probably being like a late second rounder. Could be one of the first, second off the board. So he should do really well this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you might see a few of these guys this year. I don't know about Halani. Halani's not eligible, is he? I think he could do something at running back.
I think he's been around a long time, yeah.
Trouble is, it's a good running back class, isn't it? It's not the year to be a fringe running back this year, is it? Because there's a lot of good ones who will go for... Last year was an alright year to be a fringe running back. This one, really, really not an ideal year there. So they were the pick watch fixtures we had in there. We've got to talk about a few of those, and if there's any other games you want to mention, feel free, just let me know. So, UConn we mentioned, bowl eligible. They did away with UMass in this one, 27-10, just ran all over them. Jim Mora, what a job he has done there. I had this mentioned on Twitch earlier, and I've seen it in YouTube as well. We need to talk about Ohio State a little bit. 21-7 victors over Northwestern, but they did not look good. And I know the weather was bad, the rain was bad, all these, etc., but C.J. Stroud wants a career in the Midwest, especially with the Detroit Lions. He's going to have to learn to deal with this weather. He's going to have to learn to deal with these conditions. And I came out of this one, I don't blame him too much for this, but I expected more from someone of his caliber out of this one. And Northwestern should be kicking themselves because they were running the ball well. They were using the Wildcat more than they were using their quarterback, but they had chances to stay in this and win this, and they kind of let it slip between their fingers.
Yeah, when you get like a game like where the conditions are this bad, like when the Bears beat the 49ers, the Northwestern, you can't pass up this chance. You cannot miss this opportunity where you get a big boy that comes in, the weather's shit, And like I say, throwing the ball with that wind, the majority is just a no-go. No Travion Henderson, so they didn't even have their star back. They were undermanned, and like I say, it was Evan Hull taking all the wildcat snaps. The defense of Ohio State. I mean, wildcat is a very obvious formation. It's literally a running back that's either to the side or behind, taking direct snaps. He ain't gonna be in the centre because he needs to pick a lane to go through, and they couldn't stop it. Ohio State defense, like, it's pretty bad when that shows you up because it's like pee-wee football wildcat. It's glaringly obvious. It's not big and it's not clever, but they couldn't stop it. I mean, it's pretty bad they couldn't stop it. And then, like you say, when I said, like, say, bad weather, you get like Seattle, Denver, really high above sea level at altitude. The weather's bad, conditions can be bad. If CJ Stroud can't throw into the wind, he can't generate the arm strength or the accuracy outside in bad conditions, like, he's not going to make it at the next level.
No.
You can't face adversity like this. Because, like you say, when I think about domes, you've got Detroit, you've got Minnesota, you've got Atlanta, you've got like the Rams. There's only like 6 domes in the NFL. You've got like 26 grounds that are exposed to the elements at most, like you said. So you're playing outside a lot of time, and if you get drafted, if he stayed in, like, let's say Green Bay, take him and he gets terrible weather, like,
do you trust him?
That could be bad. No, that could be really bad news. Like I said, he's not gonna get. He ain't going to Florida. He ain't going to LA. He ain't going to San Francisco. He ain't going somewhere where the weather conditions are always going to be fantastic.
No. And you saw you mentioned Justin Fields and the Bears. You saw what Justin Fields did against the 49ers. Game managed it really well in torrential rain. Made the throws only when he had to. Looked like he had control of the offense. I know this is a big difference. You know, he's a second year in the NFL now, and, you know, he's at college, Stroud is. But against that level of opposition, you should be doing better with your offense. You shouldn't be struggling for so long. You know, you should. I would expect to see more leadership out of that. And, you know, Stroud could possibly come out of college. He lost a big game against Michigan last year, kind of choked a little bit in that one. If he chokes against Michigan again this year, never makes an appearance in a college football playoffs, the 2 biggest games he plays in, he can't win. That also has to start raising questions about, you know, him in the limelight when it really matters. It's alright beating on all these scrub teams in the Big Ten all the time, but you've got to produce when it matters. He's got to go against Michigan, against this really good defense they've got, and he's got to beat them.
If he plays badly against Michigan, he won't be going in the top 3.
No, I think that's a do or die game for him, because if you've not made it to the playoffs once, and you had 3 round 1 wide receivers to throw out this year. You've seen how well Olave and Wilson have taken to the NFL, like ducks to water. The pair of them are in Offensive Rookie of the Year talk. You saw how good JSM was. You got Travion Henderson, who's your best running back in the backfield. You saw how much they missed him in this game. You know, Miam Williams is not Travion Henderson, not even close. You know, to lose the trench battle and to not be able to win against a team who's that bad playing in the Wildcat. I just see Ohio State, I would have them as like 16, 17 point underdogs at this point. But CJ's got to do something against them for me, otherwise I'm done with him.
Yeah. I think that Michigan game will probably tell us everything we need to know. Like the Ohio State offensive line on its good day is elite, but like I say, the Michigan defense in past years gives it trouble.
Takes no prisoners.
This Michigan defensive front will be expected to give it trouble again. And like I say, JSN, healthy scratch most weeks actually. I don't know what's going on there, but then you say he's got Igukba. Like I say, he's got guys like that.
Marvin Harrison.
Still strong supporting cast. I think if he has a rough end to the year, he's probably going to be somewhere like 5 to 10. He could very well be taken with the Rams pick. I mean, you won't even have to use your first pick on him.
No.
I don't think you justify it.
No, absolutely not. He has everything to prove against Michigan. CJ Stroud does. Grandizer in the chat says, did Josh Proctor, the safety from Ohio State, get hurt? His stock was really high. He has been hurt, and I think he's been ill as well. He didn't play against Northwestern through illness, so no, his stock hasn't been helped by injury this year. Other games I've got listed down on here. USC. I'm starting to have doubts about them, right? They looked like they were coasting against Cal, and Cal dropped 21 on them in the fourth quarter. This is Oklahoma all over again with Lincoln Riley, isn't it? This team looks flashy, scores points, but its defense can't muster a stop for Toffee.
No. Defensive coordinator is going to get fired. There's a lot of... Well, there's not even that much defensive talent in USC. They're just an all-out offensive juggernaut. And we've seen it twice now. Like Arizona. Arizona scored 35 points. And just literally a week ago, they only won by like 8. And now Cal, who are terrible.
Yeah.
They've got Plummer, who's a solid quarterback. But they're no darling of the Pac-12.
Nope.
They say USC, I would hate to see them make a playoff. If they went undefeated from the Pac-12 made the playoff, because they would get absolutely destroyed. The Pac-12 this year has been all shirt and no trousers. Look at UCLA.
Yeah.
Arizona State, we scored 36 points.
Yeah.
Pac-12 teams just... I know they say Big Ten don't play defense. Fucking hell, neither does the Pac-12. It's been awful.
Yeah. Stanford conceded 50-odd this week against Washington State. It's just there's beatings going on all over. Even Oregon, I think Oregon are the only team who feel like they're not really giving up points at this moment in time. This Caleb Williams, you kind of feel like USC's dragging his Heisman chances down with them, don't you? This is not helping his cause. So many close games in the Pac-12. Not when Bo Nix is wrecking shit up for Oregon.
Caleb Williams, it doesn't matter what he does, he just won't be in contention. But Bo Nix then goes out and he's just on a train. He's on a spending spree right now. Bo Nix every week he's just putting up massive numbers, and Oregon are just getting a lot more national attention, despite one having a loss and the other one doesn't have a loss.
Do you reckon it could? Do you reckon Bo Nix could win the Heisman?
No.
Who's your Heisman frontrunner right now then?
I think Dre May will win the Heisman before Bo Nix does.
Well, it was funny because I was setting this up because that was the one I wanted to talk about next. But Drake May. I
don't think Drake May will win it. No, I think he's got a better chance than Bo Nix. But now, I don't think there is a favourite right now.
See, I keep getting told a lot of people are saying, "Oh Christ!" A lot of people are saying Bo Nix. I don't feel like it's Bryce Young. I don't want it to be CJ Stroud. I don't think he deserves it. Despite, I know he's thrown a bucket load of touchdowns, but at the end of the day, it don't matter if you can't produce in the big situations. Drake May's a true freshman. So, that has to count for something. To come in college for your first season, you know what his stat lines are this year, Drake May? I mentioned this, in UNC snuck out a win against Virginia this week. And I know it's not the greatest result in the world, but Virginia can still be a decent team on their day. They still have a quarterback who has that one last great game left in him, and he struggled in this one. Brennan Armstrong did all right. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 230 yards in the air. But Drake May's season, so he has where were we here? He's throwing 71.2% completion rating. So he's 222 of 312. 2,964 yards, 31 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He is a freshman starting his first year and he's throwing 10-1 touchdown to interception ratios. That's Heisman worthy. And UNC have only lost 1 game.
I think the only win he wins the Heisman is if they win the ACC. I feel like if they don't win the ACC or he doesn't play well in the championship game, because right now, a lot has to happen for them to not make the game. Because, like say, they're like 2 games in the ACC ahead of the next person. So, I'd say he's probably the front runner right now, but I think it's how he ends the season.
So, you look at the schedule. So they got Wake Forest next. That could be a shootout. You've got Georgia Tech. I don't know about Georgia Tech this year. They just seem to beat random teams, so I'm not really focused on them. Big test is at the end. They've got North Carolina State. Now, I know, they're not what they are without Devin Leary. They beat Wake Forest, but that North Carolina State defense is elite. I know I'm biased because I'm a fan, but it's an elite defense. If May really wants to stack home his credentials, a good result against them and no turnovers will go all the way towards that Heisman vote.
If he gets to 40 touchdowns, and if they go 3-0, then yeah, you probably got to give him it before the title game. Like I say, if he's able to dissect these last 3 games, because I'm pretty sure if they beat Wake Forest, I'm pretty sure they've won that division. I'm pretty sure they can't be far.
They can't be far off. And, just for a cross-reference example, Bo Nix has 22 touchdowns this year. Drake May's got 31, and it feels like Bo Nix is throwing 6 a week. So that just shows you at what level Drake May is playing. So UNC are one to be feared. A team not to be feared, however, season's gone off the line. Syracuse beaten by Pittsburgh 19-9. It was nice, but it's over for them.
Yeah, it's a shame. I really like Dabo. I really like Dino Babers. Good head coach. He's done really well with this program. But unfortunately, like I say, you lose Garrett Wilson to a torn ACL, and then Sean Tickle gets absolutely shut down.
Yeah.
Garrett Schrader is Garrett Schrader. He's not great at just one thing. Very average. And then the team is not stacked with talent.
No.
So unfortunately, their season now. Damp squib. Look forward to a good ball game.
There was nearly a really big upset this weekend. Did you watch Kentucky and Mizzou, perchance? Will Levis and Kentucky were this close to getting upset by Missouri. It ended 21-17, but near the end of the game, Mizzou needed a turnover. Kentucky were punting it away. I think there was like a minute left in the game. Long snapper completely misses the punter. It goes all the way back to the 2-yard line, of Kentucky's own 2-yard line. And you know what? Fair play to the punter here. He grabs the ball, spins round and kicks it halfway down the field in like what feels like half a second. He gets taken out, and it's a roughing the punter penalty against Mizzou, which gives them a first down. No, gates the punt, but I don't know. I know the rules are there, but for me, I feel like, I know he's in the box, and it's crazy because he's actually still in the box. He throws it back, but he's in the box in the middle. So I think he's still classed as a punter, and you can't hit him. But I feel like that is a legitimate tackle which should not be penalised. I think Kentucky got very lucky, and that rule needs to be looked at, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm like you. I think he's a runner. He's picked the ball up. He's not punting it anymore because it's just a dead ball on the field. He should be fair game for this one. But I mean, all the Mizzou guy had to do was not touch him. But I miss your instinct. Of course you're going to go and try and tackle him, aren't you? I think it was really harsh on Mizzou.
Yeah, if the ball go past the punter, becomes live, I don't think you can be protected.
No.
I don't think you're not defenceless.
No.
You're going, like you said, because
you could have just gone to ground.
You could belt it out the side. You could kick out the back for a safety.
Throw it.
Which you could have thrown it. Like you say, he can't just keep wrapping players in cotton wool. He makes a genuine attempt to try stop a kick.
Yeah.
Like I say, he is a runner. Like I say, it's a live ball. The play is broken down, so it's unfair. Like I say, the penalty ends the game.
Yeah.
But if you don't hit him, like you say, they've got half the field to drive down. They take that chance totally out of their hands. Unfortunately, I think Kentucky, if that penalty don't happen, I feel like Mizzou have got a good chance of scoring, because the ball's probably like at
it's at the
midfield.
2. If it's dead, it's at the 2, because that's where it ended up. And I think Mizzou got screwed, and I think Kentucky got very lucky. So, but again, Mizzou played well in this. Will Levis, I still ain't enamoured by him. You are drafting the intangibles, you are not drafting the form, and I think that's dangerous. But Mizzou played well, and I think they deserve better than that. Det Van Mangos, totally agree. If he doesn't grab the snap normally, the roughing the punt penalty should be handed differently. Yeah, you should just class him as a runner, because that's what he is. I've never seen it before. I've seen long snaps be missed before and players hit afterwards. I know because it's in the box and out the box, but they need to remove it entirely. In the box should be, like you say, Ryan, in front of him. if it goes past him, behind him, that's out the box for me. But who knows? Last few, because we need to get into the other pod. Auburn nearly upset Mississippi State 39-33. Miss State won in overtime. Auburn had the chance to score first, didn't get it. Miss State went straight down, scored a touchdown. But the SEC underdogs fought this week. Mizzou should really have won against Kentucky. Auburn could potentially have won this one. They're under an interim head coach now, but they looked a lot better than they have in some time. So it gives them reason for optimism going forward.
Yeah, because Miss State on their day can be very dangerous with that Mike Leach, that air raid offense. There's a funny player from Miss State. The centre fumbles the snap when he's snapping the ball. It hits his foot, and then he turns to the side, and for some reason he has no idea where Will Rogers is. He snaps the ball at a 90-degree angle, and Will Rogers somehow makes like a one-handed catch and then takes off and runs. The ball, snapped this way, it comes at him like this way. It almost goes straight past him. That was a pretty good heads-up play from, that could have been a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. There was some cracking games this week. Is there anything else you want to mention? Because we're going to get out of here in a minute because the second podcast goes down. Any other games you want to give mention to?
Oh. Miami.
Oh, yeah.
Destroyed.
You know what? Their head coach needs jailing for... Tyler Van Dyke is not healthy. And Florida State were hitting him again and again and again and again. If it wasn't a sack, it was just a quarterback hit. He was not healthy, and the fact that they had to pull him so quickly, someone needs doing for negligence there.
There's one photo on one stand. It's got 3 people sat in it. Just an empty stand. The Miami fans just left in droves, and it looked bad. And like I say, they had a lot of high-level recruits watching the game, and apparently some of them were interviewed after, and they were like, without saying it was a disaster and they won't be committing, they basically said it like they were not impressed whatsoever.
No, they're going to have to make a decision on Mario Cristobal soon, aren't they? Because this could potentially, if they start losing the draft classes and they have this season, this could get out of hand very quickly.
Yeah, we saw what happened last year, like you say. Really bad run, head coach on our hottest seats, and in the end they pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I feel like he might go this year. If they've lost a lot of games this year. I mean, when's Jimbo's going to stay till? Texas A&M have lost 5 in a row for the first time, I believe, since the 70s or something. How is he in a job? Texas A&M lose again, whacked by Florida of all teams. Who've not been good.
Yeah, fantastic recruiter. But like I say, they're going to start decommitting. Like I say, how long? They've got 5-star defensive linemen that are currently recruited for next 2 years. They don't get no sacks. There's hardly any pressure generated. It's not exactly joining a star class. No. And then QBs are non-existent. Devon Achen's about to leave. He's probably their best player.
Yeah. You're going to be in trouble as Miami. Florida State seem like they're on a comeback. Florida, they're doing all right. UCF performing well. They'll soon lose those Comets. So yeah, a lot of interesting storylines to keep an eye on. But however, that is all for us today. We're not going to do a preview for Week 11. We will do something later on in the week, but it's too early in the week right now. We've had to do the show early, so we'll sort it out at some point in the near future, because I've not done the pick watch or anything yet for it, but some intriguing fixtures. Start off tomorrow. Eastern Michigan play tomorrow against the Akron Zips. Eastern Michigan could qualify for bowl eligibility, so give it a watch. Big respect for Chris Crichton and the job he is doing there. Brian Shock in the chat goes, I couldn't wait. 2 shots of Jameson down and my pants are off still. We beat the pack. I know, I'm sorry I'm early. This is what we've all been waiting for this evening. Thank you for joining us with the College Football Podcast. We are going to go and take a short break, grab a brew, have a break, and then we are going to come back and we are going to throw 10 shades of hell against the Green Bay Packers, because it is Victory Monday and we beat their asses yesterday, and we are going to look forward to chatting about this. So thank you to everyone who has joined the College Football Podcast. We really appreciate you joining us and supporting the show. It's getting bigger every every week. We love you guys for coming and joining us. Thank you to everyone in the Twitch chat as well. Stay with us. We will be back in about 5-10 minutes time, and we will go on with the Green Bay Packers. I'm not going to go through the usual housekeeping stuff because we can do that on the main show. But just suffice to say, me and Ryan will be back in a week or so to chat about week 11 of the season. So we will see you very shortly. Until then, thank you ever so much. One Pride.